I remember my bully ended up grabbing me by my pants and ended up pulling my pants down. And I am not joking. My bully ended up saying, oh my goodness, wait, it's actually pretty big. And I stood there frozen. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to a super embarrassing story. So today's story all starts off back when I was in high school, and this was my grade 9 year. Now, grade 9 is when I kind of just started really getting into the realm of meeting women and basically trying to pull girls. But obviously, with all good goals that come to life, there's always got to be a hater or a bully that tries to stop you. And one thing I will say, well, I had a bully back when I was in high school, and let's just say she was not the best. Yes, I know it's weird to say that a guy had a bully that was a girl, but at the same time, I'm not gonna lie to you, back when I was in grade 9, this bully that I had was in grade 11, and she, I guess in some way, had a lot more influence in the school than I did. But I remember there was one time specifically where I was basically just walking down the school hallway, and there was a girl in my grade 9 year that I actually kind of liked. I didn't really have like a full-on crush on her, but I thought she was attractive. I thought this one day when I was walking down the school hallway that since I saw her by her locker, I could just walk up to her and kind of just strike a conversation. But out of nowhere, as I start walking towards her direction, I ended up getting pushed on the ground by a girl. I remember she ended up pushing me saying, oh my goodness, another grade 9 student that doesn't know how to walk. Watch where you're going. Understand? Yeah. Sorry about that, is what I said. And I remember the girl that I was attracted to ended up seeing this whole thing happen, and I got so embarrassed to walk up to her afterwards that I ended up walking away. Obviously, at that moment, I didn't really know why this girl was so mean to me that I ended up bumping into, or technically she pushed me, but honestly, I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Until I remember later on that same school day, out of nowhere, I remember I was in the lineup for the school cafeteria, and I just wanted to get the mac and cheese that they were serving because the mac and cheese at the school was so good. And I remember as I was lining up for it, out of nowhere, I ended up seeing that there was one left. So me reaching up to grab it, I remember this girl that was like in grade 11 that was a bully to me ended up walking up to me and basically pushing me to the side and grabbing the last mac and cheese. She looked at me and said, sorry, did you want this? Well, too bad. It's the last one. And she ended up walking away, not even paying for the food. I remember I was about to walk away, but then afterward, the lady that was at the cashier for the school cafeteria ended up making me have to pay for her food. So in a way, she basically took my lunch money. I remember at that point, I was so upset, and I ended up basically walking up to her because obviously I'm not gonna let some girl just pick on me like that. And when I walked up to her and said, hey, you owe me $5 for the food. Excuse me? You're telling me to pay you? Are you serious? I am a woman of this generation, and you're asking me to give you money? Why? Is it because you're a guy? At that point, I remember a lot of people in the cafeteria started looking, and I felt embarrassed. At that moment, I remember I decided to just walk away and basically not interact with her again because, well, I don't know, when a lot of eyes are on you, it gets really nerve-wracking. But I remember basically I ended up running out of there, and I ended up just hanging out with some of my friends that were in my science class at the time. And I started just talking to them and basically like telling them about this girl that was such a bully to me. I remember one of my friends ended up saying, bro, I would do something, but I'm not gonna lie to you, like, she's a girl, bro. Like, you can't hit girls. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And at that point, I didn't know why this girl hated me so much. Like, it just never understood or made sense to me until I remember Friday came around. And Friday, I remember we were doing this thing called the Terry Fox run, where basically you're supposed to like run for like a certain amount of time around the school to show respect for the person that ran across Canada. Kind of insane, by the way. Like, what kind of guy wants to run across Canada? Like, there's so many places you could run across. Like, you could run across the Pacific Ocean, you could run across the Great Wall of China. Like, why Canada specifically? I really have no idea why, but basically I remember that same day everyone got to school, and for our third period we all had to meet up in the school and basically get ready to do the run. I remember I ended up seeing a lot of students like basically compiled into this gym, and there was like so many of us, and basically like everyone got like really close together where I'm not gonna lie to you, it felt really hard to breathe. And one thing led to another. I remember as I'm like trying to like get through the wave of people, I ended up seeing the girl that was my bully. I remember I tried avoiding her, but then out of nowhere she ended up walking up to me, and she ended up basically like kind of like bumping into me on purpose saying, oh, sorry, I didn't see you there, little guy. What's your problem? Excuse me? Like, no, what is your problem with me? Like, I don't understand. Nothing. Quit being such a small eggplant, you weirdo. And she ended up walking away. At this point, I was super annoyed, and I just didn't understand why. And I guess from all that anger that was built up in me, I decided to waste it by basically doing this marathon and basically just let my anger out by running. I remember when we all met in front of the school, we all basically lined up and we all started running. And when we started running, I am not joking, I ran my heart out. The amount of anger that this girl put me through, I am not joking, just really upset me. And I started sprinting. I started running as fast as I could. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I caught a lot of people's attention. Like, for example, my teachers kept cheering me on. It got to a point where actually the school photographer ended up taking a photo of me to put into the yearbook later on that year. The amount of effort I did doing that run really amazed a lot of people, until I remember when it got towards the end of the run and everyone at the school was just finishing the whole event. Basically, I remember a lot of people started walking up to me, teachers started walking up to me, basically telling me that I did a good job. But then afterwards, the one person I did not want to see ended up walking up to me. It was the girl that was my bully. She walked up to me and said, "Hey, I saw you running out there. Not bad for a little guy." "Thanks," is what I told her. And then afterwards, I remember I basically decided to just walk away from her because I did not want to build up any more anger from this girl. But then afterwards, she ends up walking beside me and says, "Hey, don't walk away from me. I get you have a small eggplant, but you don't gotta be weird. My eggplant isn't small. Stop talking about me," is what I said back. And what this girl ended up doing was she ended up grabbing my pants and pulling it down out of nowhere in front of everyone. She pulled it down, and I remember she looked at me and said, "OMG, wait a second. It's actually really big. Bubba, you packing?" And at that moment, I was so embarrassed and I did not know what to say, to the point where I ended up pulling up my pants and I actually sprinted with all the anger that I got built up again back to the school, and I ended up hiding in the school locker room. As I was in the locker room, I just basically sat down in there, and I'm not gonna lie, I actually started tearing up a bit, until out of nowhere, I want to say 10 minutes later, of just me sitting on my phone after a while, just trying to distract myself from what just happened and avoid anyone that saw what happened. I ended up hearing the door for the gym locker room open. I basically heard it open, and out of nowhere, I ended up seeing that this grade 11 girl that was literally the biggest bully I ever had to deal with probably, ended up walking up to me saying, "Hey, Bubba, I just want to say, like, I'm sorry if I really, like, picked on you. I'm sorry. Like, I just thought you were, like, one of those, like, weird, like, wannabe cool grade 9 kids. Like, I really didn't mean any of it. Are you just saying that because a teacher told you to say that?" is what I said afterwards. And then she sat down beside me, and, well, she actually ended up making out with me. My bully ended up making out with me out of nowhere. And I'm not gonna lie to you, one thing led to another. She ended up telling me in my ear. So, like, I was wondering, can I see it again? And, well, I'm not gonna say anything else other than, yeah, me and her, we ended up doing the devil's tango in the school locker room. Kind of crazy, but at the same time, hey, what can I say? I guess I had the ultimate Riz. No, it wasn't Riz. In reality, it was actually just a really embarrassing experience. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I think everyone has like a high school bully in some sorts. Like, I know back when I was in high school, I had myself in high school bully, and it was not fun. And before anyone says anything, bullying comes in any way, shape, or form. Like, I know there's a lot of cyberbullying nowadays since, you know, everyone has access to the internet. Like, for God's sakes, I can picture a 9-year-old literally telling me that I'm never gonna be good at a video game and bully me in any way, shape, or form. But this was back when I was in high school, and honestly, like, when I was in high school, I'm not gonna lie, I looked like this. So you guys are gonna be ready for the story. It's gonna be insane, and just get ready for this. And on top of that, make sure you guys join the Discord and Twitch. You know, I stream almost every day, and I like hanging out with you guys. Seriously, it makes me get to know you guys more and basically gets our community closer together. Now, anyways, let's get straight into this story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy story. So this story starts back, like I said, back in high school. You see, back in high school, remember, I looked like this. So honestly, I wasn't really, let's just say I was woman repellent. That's probably the best way to really put it in this standpoint. And I remember it was like one of my first weeks of high school, and I'm not gonna lie, I did not know anything about the school. I wasn't cool in any way. I didn't know many people, and I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't considered, I guess, normal. But I remember one day specifically, there was a day where my father actually gifted me an Angry Birds t-shirt. Now, if you guys don't know what Angry Birds is, it was basically a game where it's like a bunch of birds flying down, being all angry and stuff, and fighting pigs. And let's just say my father gave me a t-shirt that was with my favorite Angry Bird, and that was, of course, the red one, because he's the main character. Honestly, if you don't like the main characters in movies, then obviously you're not gonna like the thing in general, or in games, actually, funny enough. But going on, I remember when I got that t-shirt, I instantly wanted to wear it. I remember I wore it to sleep, and I wore it the next day going to school. So obviously I wore a wrinkled shirt. My advice, don't do that, especially in high school. It's kind of weird. But going on though, I remember I was wearing it at school that day, and I was just walking around the hallway. Obviously some of my friends thought it was cool, but in reality, let's be real here, it was an Angry Birds t-shirt. Like, yeah, maybe back in 2016 it would maybe be somewhat cool, but realistically, no, this was not the time and age for it. Going on though, I remember me and my friend Justin were walking down the hallway, and we were just, you know, going through the hallway, going to our next class and doing the average thing. And then this big dude, I think he was like around like 6'5", walked up to me. And reminder, I was like 5'4" at this time. I was a really short kid. To be honest, I didn't hit my growth spurt until like grade 10, grade 11-ish. So that didn't help me at all. But going on, I remember he walked up to me, and I remember looking up kind of scared in a sense, because let's be real here, I wasn't really a fighter at the time. And he looked at me and said, "Oh, your shirt looks like garbage. You look like a total loser." And in my head, obviously, I was kind of like sad because, you know, someone's making fun of my Angry Birds t-shirt, bro. Like, what are you doing? And then after that, I saw there his hot girlfriend came up beside him and stuff. And yeah, he had a girlfriend and everything. Whoop-de-doo. He was cooler than me at the time. And at the time, the only thing I could actually do was run away. So that's what I did. I ran away. And funny enough, he started following me and I kind of got freaked out. So I remember I ended up hiding into a classroom. Teacher pulled me in, blah, blah, blah. That's it. Bully walked away. Now you guys are probably thinking, okay, when does the whole actual thing happen that's in the title of this video? Me actually getting stuck in the locker. Well, you see, the thing is, you guys know how much I love that Angry Birds t-shirt. I probably mentioned that in the beginning of this video. And the thing about that Angry Birds t-shirt is that I wore it for 3 days damn straight. Yeah, I didn't wash it, nothing. I literally slept in it, woke up in it, and went to school with it. That shirt literally became like my skin. A damn bright red Angry Birds t-shirt. Now, you guys can laugh as much as you want. Honestly, at the time, I guess I got really close to it and connected to it. But going on, and on the 3rd day of me wearing that Angry Birds t-shirt, I am not gonna lie to you guys. It did stink. But not only did it stink, I remember on that 3rd day of me wearing the shirt, I went into class and it was my 3rd class in. And my high school bully was in my class at the time. I remember him looking at me and started laughing, saying, "Oh, dude, that shirt's gonna stink, loser." And obviously he was right. The shirt did stink, but I still loved it and I wore it. And I remember looking at him saying, "I don't care. I like my shirt." And I sat down. Yeah, not the best way to confront your bullies, especially when they're right about something. But going on, I remember after class that day, I walked to my locker to go pull out some books for my next class because obviously I had science. And when I had science and I took out my books, I remember the high school bully was right behind me. He was literally sniffing me from behind and saying, "Oh, I was right. Your shirt smells like butt." And then he instantly pushed me into the locker and locked it on me. Yes, he literally pushed me in a locker. Somehow, I think this was illegal, but honestly, he ended up doing it anyway. He pushed me in there and literally locked the door on me, and I was stuck. I was stuck in my own damn locker. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, when a stinky t-shirt is in a locker for a long time, it starts to smell. When he locked the locker and walked away, I remember I was stuck in there and I was panicking. I didn't know what to do at the moment. I was kind of just freaking out thinking, okay, do I break the locker? And then I tried slamming into the locker. Obviously it didn't break, and yeah, it didn't work out. And going on, I was stuck in there for, I want to say, almost maybe 2 hours at most. To be honest, I kind of got to the point where I pulled out my phone hoping I had some sort of data and started watching some movies, funny enough. And to this day, I actually do remember that movie, and it was the Lego movie. Yeah, don't laugh. I know it's weird, but I liked Lego games at the time. What can I say? Anyways, I remember hearing the bell ring after the final class was over, and I saw everyone walking down the hallway. When I saw people walking down the hallway through the slits of my locker, I remember slamming on my locker like there was no tomorrow. My movie was done. The locker was getting stinky. And honestly, I didn't want to be in there anymore. Like, I just literally couldn't handle it. I didn't know what I was doing, so I just kept slamming and slamming and slamming until someone finally came up to my locker. But sadly, the person who came up to my locker was not the person I wanted to show up to my locker, funny enough. Now, you guys are probably thinking, "Oh, look, what do you mean? Like, you're literally about to get out. Like, why are you being weird about it?" Well, you see, the person that walked up to my locker was my high school crush. Yes, my literal crush. She walked up to my locker and she said, "Bubba, are you in there?" At first, I didn't want to say anything and just pretend it never happened because I recognized her voice right on the dot. But then I started really thinking to myself, do you really want to get saved from your high school crush? So I ended up saying, "Yeah, I'm kind of stuck in the locker. Can you like maybe like help me out and get a teacher?" Trying to sound all cool as if, you know, I was cool. And then the girl said, "Who did this to you? Like, why are you in there in the first place?" At first I said science project, but then I realized that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would I try to suffocate myself in a damn locker? So I ended up saying, I kind of just ended up getting trapped in here, and someone locked the locker thinking it was for safety reasons. Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I was nervous. I didn't know what to really say. And to be honest, I didn't want to tell my high school crush that I was getting bullied in school, because what kind of kid gets bullied in school? At least that's what I thought at the time. Going on though, I remember I was, you know, kind of freaking out, and she went to go get a teacher. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, how am I going to explain this to a damn teacher? Because obviously it's not going to go easy for anyone. The teacher came and she tried to unlock my locker. I told her my combination, and when the locker opened, I can just tell both my teacher and my high school crush had the most biggest whiff of smelling my stinky Angry Birds t-shirt. Like, I'm not joking. If this wasn't Minecraft, you could see the Minecraft particles of the stinky air coming out. Like, it was that bad. I remember them looking away and then looking back into the locker thinking, what are you doing in the locker? And then my teacher actually did end up asking me, Bubba, why are we in the locker? At first, I didn't really say anything and I kind of just kept quiet. But then I saw my high school bully kind of just in the background looking at me and kind of just laughing and pointing at me. And I literally just pointed back back at him saying, he did it to me. He did this. As if I was, you know, in a courtroom acting all cool. And then everyone looked at him, and after that he ended up yelling, "Oh, you're such a snitch, Bubba," and he ran. He literally ran out of the school, and it was after school anyway, so teachers can't really do anything about it yet. But honestly, after that day, I remember I got my clothes in my bag, and I actually ended up having an extra shirt that I usually changed for gym class that day. I went to the nearest bathroom, changed my shirt into just a simple black one, and I walked out. But when I walked out, I remember as I was walking down the hallway, my high school crush came up behind me. She put her hand on my shoulder and she said, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" At first I was kind of just like, oh great, like she's gonna put a pity party on me. But then she looked at me and said, "Hey, like, you know, I'm not gonna lie, like being bullied in school sucks, but honestly I think you're pretty cool, and honestly I like Angry Birds too." In my mind I thought this was absolutely BS. There's no way this girl actually plays Angry Birds. I know every bird including the black bomber bird, and he's epic. I didn't say that because obviously that's cringy, but obviously I guess, you know, we started walking down the hallway and she started talking about how she used to play Angry Birds when she was younger, like me. And from there on we ended up having a somewhat of a cool connection. Now obviously the high school bully did end up getting in trouble. I think he got like suspended for a couple days. But at the end of the day, honestly, the lesson behind this whole storyline is if you get bullied, stand up to your bullies and don't be afraid to be honest about it. Seriously, if someone's picking on you, you have full rights to pick on them back and handle things your way. Or you can actually go seek help. Honestly, seeking help also is a good idea, but honestly, don't be afraid to stand up for your own things. Okay, so one thing that I've noticed is that YouTube boxing has actually gotten like really big. Like, don't get me wrong, I saw the first fights of when like KSI and like Logan Paul were like such a big deal. But now seeing that KSI is officially fighting people like Tommy Temper for some reason, like really like face Temper out of all people who could box. I don't know, honestly, I think it's gone so downhill. And that leads me to the question, if I had to box someone, and I mean literally any YouTuber, who would you think I would box? I was thinking about doing Austin Luna, or maybe I would even box Scrubs. I don't know, I'll literally box anyone. I'm gonna be brutally honest, because like, don't get me wrong, being in the ring is exciting for me, and I think it's pretty cool. And this story is about how I actually got into the ring one time with my high school bully. And trust me, this story does get intense, so make sure to do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's get straight into the story. All right, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So this story starts back, actually, funny enough, I want to say in my grade 11 year. Now in grade 11, I was already really known throughout the school for being with a lot of different girls and stuff, and don't get me wrong, I was like a major player and always doing the devil's tango. But one thing I never realized as I was doing all these things is that a lot of guys would envy me. And by envy, I mean be jealous of me. Now at first, I didn't really care why, nor did I really want to bother, because either way, I still had the boys that were like my close friends that understood me and well enough to know that I'm not that kind of person to really care for the girls I've been with. But for some reason, there was one guy in my school who would always pick on me, but not only pick on me, but pick on a lot of different other people. Now, don't get me wrong, this guy in no way was he like charming or was he attractive or nothing like that whatsoever. But one thing I can say was that a lot of women would turn him down, and a lot of the women that turned him down have actually done the devil's tango with me. Anyways, I remember one day I was sitting in the cafeteria, just kind of chilling, being on my own, and I was just kind of just writing a paper that I had to do for English class. And out of nowhere, the guy was literally coming into the cafeteria, the bully that, well, no one really liked. And I remember he was just kind of walking around the cafeteria, and I found it really odd. But then I remember a girl ended up running into the cafeteria and running into him saying, "Oh, hey, I got your message. You want to talk to me? Like, what's going on?" And as I was overhearing their conversation, because they were literally like right behind me, I remember this guy that like no one liked in my school literally said, "Oh, like, I was just wondering, like, do you want to like maybe like go out sometime?" As I was hearing this, I was really like kind of like weirded out, but at the same time almost kind of laughing, because I don't know, I found it funny. Just, I don't know, it was just a funny moment. Like, don't you guys laugh when like you hear something like really awkward come out of someone else's mouth? I know I do. So basically when I heard that, I was kind of like giggling, and then out of nowhere, I remember seeing this girl. She looked at me, and then she looked back at the guy and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. It's just like, trust me, it's not you, it's me. Like, I just don't think I'm ready for a relationship yet." And when a girl says this, I'm saying this right now, it is the most cap, most BS thing that any girl could say. Like, no joke. When a girl would say that, I'm saying this right now, the problem isn't her. It's definitely you. So to all the guys that's been told, "Oh, like, it's nothing with you, it's me." No, just know it is actually you. Like, figure out your stuff, bro. But basically, I remember hearing that, and I literally couldn't hold anymore, and I literally got up and left the cafeteria. I didn't want to be mean and literally laugh right in front of him, so I decided to be nice and left the cafeteria and started laughing when I was going down the hallway. But as I was walking down the hallway, I remember out of nowhere, the girl that was literally just asked out came up beside me and said, "Oh, hey, Bubba, like, what are you doing?" I remember I was just walking with her, and I'm like, "Oh, nothing, you know, just chilling, just hanging out and stuff. What about you?" And me and her, we started walking together to her next class. I remember as we were walking, though, this guy ended up going through the outside cafeteria doors and entering in the school where we just walked to. And when we entered in, he literally saw me and her literally standing standing together and talking. Now, the girl's back was facing him, so obviously the girl didn't notice he was there. And this girl, for some reason, had the gall, and I mean the literal gall, to literally ask me out right in front of him. No joke. She was like, oh, like, hey, I was just wondering, like, you're really cute, and like, I'm not really doing anything this Saturday. Do you want to like maybe go out sometime? I remember I looked at the girl and I looked at the guy behind him, which is like the bully that literally just asked her out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be for real with you. I think I'm busy that day. You know, I'm just chilling. And then this guy was so infumed, like literally in flames. Like, I'm not joking. He literally looked like the character from Inside Out, the red character with like the red flames coming out of him. Yeah, he literally looked just like that. Mad at me, dude. Like, he was so mad to the point where he decided to come into our conversation, pop up behind the girl and say, oh, okay, I get it now. So you're gonna ask him out, but you're not gonna go out with me even though I asked you. What kind of woman are you? What does this guy have that I don't? And right as he says that, he ends up pushing me up against the lockers. Now, at this point, I'm not gonna lie. I was in grade 11. I ain't no wuss at this time and age. So I remember I literally stood up against him. I'm like, hey, what do you mean? What's wrong with me, bro? And then afterwards, we start kind of like, you know, pushing each other in the hallway. And then a teacher comes out of the classroom, says, hey, boys, this is not the setting for a fight. Seriously, take it to the office. So me and this dude, we end up going to the office, and, you know, we had a talking to, blah, 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 all that office stuff where the principal really never knows what's going on. And then afterwards, me and this guy, we ended up walking away and going our separate ways. Now, usually I would hope the story would end here, but sadly it didn't. Because I remember one time my buddy saw me and he was like, yo, bro, like, I'm taking this new boxing gym, like, course. Do you want to, like, come with me? I heard you're, like, kind of experienced in boxing. Which, since I did, like, boxing in, like, middle school, and this was, like, just for a bit, and that's a story for a different time. But, you know, boxing in middle school, I had, like, little experience, but at the same time, I was still a kid, so I never really, like, got back into it. I don't know. I just prefer video games instead. But when he invited me, I remember this was a good friend of mine, and I decided to try it out. So I remember in grade 11, we ended up going to this boxing gym. Now, this boxing gym was, like, really, like, run down. Like, it was, like, one of those ones that you'd see, like, Rocky Balboa go into, like, in, like, the movies. It was just a basic rundown boxing gym. And I won't lie, it was pretty cool. I remember me and my buddy were just practicing sparring, and, you know, we were punching the bag and doing the same old usual things that boxers usually do when they train. And then out of nowhere, I'm not joking when I say this, out of nowhere, this guy that literally was basically a bully at my school walked into the boxing gym. And when he saw me, I'm not joking when I say this, he literally drops his duffel bag that he was carrying with his boxing gloves in it and walks up to me saying, oh, that's good, I found you here, little bum. And he ended up pushing me on the ground. I remember I looked at him like, dude, you need to calm down. Like, seriously, this is not gonna get you anywhere. Like, what do you want to do, huh? What are you gonna do, huh? And basically started, like, you know, yelling at him somewhat in the boxing gym. And then out of nowhere, these two guys ended up coming up behind us both, like these two really big guys, like that were like really built, and kind of just started pulling us back and like basically making sure that we don't actually hurt each other with our bare knuckle fists. And then afterward, basically, we ended up getting separated apart, and the guys at the boxing gym were talking to us and saying that if you guys want to fight each other, there's only one place to fight, and that's in the ring. So I remember basically me and him, we signed it up for the ring, and basically we were going to do an actual boxing fight, like an actual boxing match. But obviously we had to schedule the ring and everything, so we ended up scheduling it for Saturday. Now, the day I went to the boxing gym was on Wednesday, and basically throughout the 2 days of me going to school and going to the boxing gym to practice for the fight, everyone in the school started finding out about it. Girls at my school started finding out, and a lot of my homies at school ended up figuring out what was going on, and basically all wanted to go. So it got to the point where I want to say over 50 people in my school, and I'm not gonna lie, I think 30 of them were actually chicks and 20 of them were guys that were good friends of mine, literally ended up showing up on Saturday to the boxing gym to watch me beat this guy. We all ended up going to the boxing gym. We ended up basically, you know, getting ready and stuff, and I started practicing on my side of the ring while he was practicing on his side of the ring. We were sparring for a bit, you know, practicing with our partners, and then afterwards we got ready and we sat down, we got ready for boxing. Now, I'm not gonna lie, we only used like, I think 6-pound gloves. We didn't use like any actual like heavyweight gloves that were like, you know, usually 10-pound gloves that most boxing people use in like the actual rings. We're using basic gloves. We had helmets on, obviously, because we were not really planning on knocking someone out. I personally like my face, you know, I like to keep my face for YouTube. And basically me and him, we ended up basically going to our sides, prepping up, talking to our guys, and then afterwards we sat down, we got ready. The announcer came on stage and basically said, all right, in this corner we have Arash Baba Muini, and in this corner we have, well, I'm not gonna say his name because, you know, the story is about him and I don't want any legal trouble. So yeah, going on. Basically from there, the bell ended up ringing. We ended up going up against each other. We started fighting. I ended up punching him, he was punching me, you know, the basic same old that you usually see in the boxing ring. But then afterwards, this guy has the audacity, and I mean the audacity, to punch me in the back of the head. And when he punched me in the back of the head, don't get me wrong, it hurt, but it was a very not legal move, meaning that he was not allowed to punch me in the back of the head. It is like a basic boxing rule you're not allowed to do. But obviously I didn't complain about it. I just moved on from it and said, hey, you want to fight like that? We can do that. So basically from there, I remember this guy was a bit taller than me, by the way. I was only like 5'7" at the time, I think. And basically this guy was like, I want to say almost 6 foot. So one thing I really had to do was that since he had more of a reach on me, I ended up punching his liver a lot. And when you hit someone in the stomach that is really taller than you, it hurts a lot, especially when you hit the liver area. At least that's what you learn when you're doing basic fighting training. And then from there, basically, one thing led to another. I ended up punching his liver. His face ended up going down, and that's when I uppercutted him. I, no joke, uppercutted the guy, and basically, I remember he ended up going on the ground. He was on the ground, but I guess he didn't really understand boxing rules because he ended up staying on the ground longer than 10 seconds. At this point, I remember the bell rang, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I actually just won. Everyone started freaking out. Everyone started, like, you know, yelling, congratulations, yay. And don't get me wrong, it felt good, but as he was laying on the ground crying, I basically saw in his eyes that he was really upset when he saw the girl basically cheering for me that he asked out the other day. And at that point, I remember I basically helped him get up and I dabbed him up and said, bro, good fight. And then afterwards, he kind of just ended up being a good friend of mine. And to this day, we're still friends. Well, somewhat. I don't know. I don't really talk to him much anymore, but hey, what can I say? It was a good fight and I ended up getting friends out of it. Anyways, guys, that was basically it for today's story. Make sure to do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, just follow for more embarrassing stories. Okay, so usually when you're babysitting someone, you're supposed to usually stay at your own house as you're getting babysat. But this one babysitter I had decided to take things to a different length and decided to take me, well, to her house. And what happens at her house? Well, I think you guys may know, but let me tell the story instead. But before we do, make sure you guys press that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It seriously means a lot when you guys do. And a quick announcement, I'm going to be currently streaming on Twitch and also streaming to you guys live. So I guess join me live and watch me play games and tell stories live. Yeah, that's basically it. Anyways, other than that, let's just jump straight into this crazy story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to an embarrassing story. So this story all takes place back in my high school years, and funny enough, this was when I was actually in grade 11. So this was me turning 16 to 17. And when I was 16 turning to 17, I'm not gonna lie to you, I wasn't a well-behaved kid, and to be honest, my parents did not trust me whatsoever. The reason for this is because, well, I was known throughout my school for being a total F-boy and not really paying attention to school, because the only thing I would actually care about was smashing as many women as possible. You guys may know this from watching the channel and realizing, wow, this guy has a really high body count. And yes, when you have a body count of 143, it tends to be that way. But going on with the story, I remember basically back when I was in high school, my parents, like I said, did not trust me. So what usually ended up happening when they wanted to go on a trip was they would end up leaving me with a babysitter. Now, I remember one time I ended up going inside my kitchen one morning and I ended up basically getting ready for school and was ready to basically, you know, do what I had to do. It was a Friday, and I remember right as I walked into the kitchen though and started grabbing a cup of water, I ended up looking in the side of my eye and I saw my mom was on her laptop. Now, there are usually only two reasons why my mom would be on her laptop. The first reason would be to, you know, message my grandma on Facebook and see how life's going and check on updates on other people. And right as I looked in the corner of my eye, I saw that she was on this babysitter site where she would grab the most weirdest babysitters in my area. Now, I don't know what website this was, but if this video gets over 10,000 likes, I will try to find the website and hire a babysitter for me at this day and age. Yeah, a 22-year-old's gonna hire a babysitter. I don't know how this is gonna go, but like I said, 10,000 likes and we'll see if we can make it happen. Anyways, going on with the story, when I saw this, I remember I was in panic because obviously this weekend I had major plans to go hang out with my friends while my parents were gone. So I ended up walking up to my mom and I told her, Mom, what are you doing? Like, why are you looking for a babysitter? I don't need one. I'm gonna be busy this weekend. No, Bubba, you have to be home and focusing on school, so I'm going to hire a babysitter to make sure you focus on school. You're not going out at all this weekend. And me, obviously, I was really upset. I'm like, there's no way my weekend's gonna be ruined by a woman that's going to try to sit on me because, well, babysitter. Get it now? Okay, going on. My mom ended up telling me that I had no choice, and well, one thing led to another. I ended up basically going upstairs to my room really upset. But obviously I still had school, so I got my backpack and I went straight to school, and I told my friends how basically I was not able to do anything this weekend whatsoever. And obviously my friends were really upset about that because apparently there was going to be a senior party where all the grade 12s and older cool kids would be hanging out at some person's house. Now, obviously me, I really want to go because this person that was hosting the party was some popular girl at our school that was way older than us, but she was really attractive and really hot. So obviously I wanted to go, but obviously knowing what I knew, I couldn't, and I was really upset until something insane happened. I remember when I got home from school that day, I was obviously really annoyed because, well, my friends were all gonna have a good weekend other than me. But as I got home, my parents packed up their bags, they got ready for their trip, and right as before they left, I remember a person knocked the door. Now, obviously this was the babysitter, so I ended up basically walking up to the door, opened the door, and I saw it was the popular girl from my school that was hosting the party. Now, at this point, I was really confused. I'm like, wait, she's gonna be with me this weekend, but she's also hosting a party? How is this even possible? And one thing led to another. I remember as my parents right away just leave the house, this girl ends up basically, like, you know, kind of ignoring me me because she thought it was really dumb how I was a 16-year-old getting babysat, and she ended up calling all her friends and stuff and basically tried to plan out this party that she was having. I remember after like, I want to say 17 phone calls with 17 different women, because girls talk so much for some reason, I ended up walking up to her around dinner time and asked her, wait, so are you staying the night here? Because like, I heard you're hosting a party literally tomorrow, and like, I don't know, are you gonna like be staying here? Like, what's the plan with that? She ended up looking at me and saying, oh yeah, wait, were you invited to that party? A couple friends told me about it, yeah, but I mean, like, my parents want me to stay here and study. So you're telling me that instead of going to a damn party, you're gonna stay here and study like a loser? I don't want to get in trouble, you know? Like, obviously I want to pass school. She ended up looking at me and saying, okay, well, we'll figure it out. I didn't know what this meant by we will figure it out, because obviously her job was to babysit me and my job was to basically do my homework. But I want to say the next day came around. The next morning, she ended up waking up on my couch and walking up to my room. She said, I need to be for real with you. I need to make sure I host that party. This is the final year of my high school year and I want to make it count. So what do we got to do to make sure you don't tell your parents? I ended up looking at her and I said, well, to be honest, I want to go to the party. So if you invite me and I'm allowed to go, then I'll go. Okay, fine. You're invited. Well, there is another thing. Is it cool if like, you know, my friends come? Yeah. Aren't they already going? Like, hello, it's an open invite party, dummy. Will you, you know, be my date to the party? She ends up looking at me super weird when I said that. And to be honest, I don't know what I was trying to pull there. To be honest, she was super hot and I thought, I thought I should just spit some riz. So she ends up saying, sure. Yeah, I don't see why not. You can come with me, I guess, and look like my date. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm in. But then I told her there was one other thing we had to make sure of. So in my house back in high school, we basically had security cameras placed around the house so I wouldn't host any parties. So basically, I remember me and her, we had to overdrive like basically a bunch of footage of us being around the house and doing house things. So we ended up basically recording a long like 40-minute video of just doing the same things over and over again, and we placed it on loop before we left for the party. I remember once I did that, I got dressed for the party and so did she, and this babysitter ended up taking me to her house where she was hosting this massive party. When we got there, I remember a lot of people were already at her doorstep just hanging out waiting, and there were so many girls that were at this party. And I remember me and her, we ended up partying all night at her place, and it was awesome because all my friends saw me come with her. Everyone was looking at me. To be honest, it was like I was the star of the show. And me and her, we ended up looking at each other thinking, wow, we really pulled this off, where I got my great weekend and she still gets paid for watching over me because technically speaking, she was still my babysitter. And one thing led to another. There was one moment at the party where me and her, we were totally wasted, which by the way, do not underage drink. I am just saying that because that was me in high school. Just don't do it. It's not cool. It doesn't make you any cooler than anyone else. And basically me and her, we ended up basically talking together, and we saw that me and her, we were pretty cool together. We make a great team. And well, what do most guys do with their woman teammates? Well, we ended up going to her bedroom and we did the devil's tango. I want to say this wasn't a shocker because, well, I was 16, she was, 17 turning 18. Like, like it made sense. We were both basically teenagers, and well, even though she was considered my babysitter, she was still hot. Like, hello, doesn't it make sense? And I remember me and her, we basically ended up doing that whole thing. We ended up doing the devil's tango. And it was funny because some of my friends ended up walking into the room as I'm middle of, hitting it from the back, which was really awkward. And sorry to one of my buddies that saw that. I know you did not want to see my massive eggplant, but hey, it is what it is. And I want to say the next day, me and her, we woke up beside each other with absolutely nothing on, and we realized that, oh my goodness, my parents were gonna arrive at the house literally in less than 2 hours. So me and her, we ended up getting up and we ended up basically cleaning up the room as fast as we could. We ended up cleaning up the house that she lived in as fast as we could, and then we instantly drove in her car and got straight to my place. And basically we were still in a party clothes, but we didn't have enough time to change because my parents literally just pulled into the driveway as we entered the house. So I remember she ended up going to the bathroom and basically getting changed, and me, I ended up basically kind of like sitting in my room pretending I was playing video games in like really nice like party clothes. And my parents, when they came inside, they ended up going upstairs and saw me basically like with like stains on my like nice dress shirt, and like, well, I'm gonna just say this, they weren't fooled. They basically knew the video was on loop because my dad went to go check the security cameras right away, and me and her, we got in severe trouble. But at the end of the day, I mean, hey, even though she didn't get paid the full amount she was supposed to, I still did the devil's tango with my babysitter. So am I really losing there? Okay, but if you thought that story was bad, wait till you hear this one, because this one goes insane. Okay, so I've had a ton of weird babysitters, but a babysitter that wanted to be the baby, that's a little insane until I actually experienced it. But before we get into the story, make sure you guys press that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do this. And let's just jump straight into this embarrassing story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to a super embarrassing story. So today's story all takes place back in my middle school year, and I remember this was when I was in grade 7. Now, when I was in grade 7, I'm not gonna lie to you, I wasn't mature, nor was I able to take care of myself. To be honest, if I had to choose what to eat for dinner, it'd probably be mac and cheese with a jug of chocolate milk. Would that be healthy? No. But would I enjoy it? Yes. So anyways, going on with the story, I remember from there, where one time when I was sitting in my room playing Call of Duty during winter break, which is funny enough because we're in winter break right now, I remember my mom ended up coming up to me saying, "Oh, Baba, we're going to go to America to visit some family for winter break. I know you don't want to come because we bought you a new video game for Christmas. So we're going to let you basically stay here, but we're going to hire a babysitter." I remember I looked at my parents and this was nothing out of the regular. My parents would always go on trips to America to go see family that we have there. And me, I never really went because I obviously wanted to stay home playing video games and dream about being a famous YouTuber, which thanks to you guys pressing that subscribe button, you guys are able to do. Anyways, going on, I remember I ended up saying whatever, it's fine. And basically my parents went online to find a babysitter. For some reason, they always went online and found this like really weird babysitter site where they could basically find me babysitters. And I'm not gonna lie to you, every single one of them was probably super weird, except that really nice old lady that gave me cookies every time I wanted. She was cool, but this babysitter that ended up coming over was the most weirdest babysitter of all time. Because I remember the next day when my parents were packing their bags, getting ready, I remember I heard my door knock. And when my door knocked, obviously I went downstairs and opened it to see who the babysitter was. And when I opened it, I realized that there was a woman that was probably around 16, 17, and she was wearing a onesie. Yeah, a onesie. And it wasn't no normal onesie. It was like one of those like bunny onesies that like chicks wear to like, you know, I guess look cute even though they're still ugly. And I remember I was so in shock when I saw this, to the point where I was like, "Hi, are you my babysitter?" "Yeah, I'm your babysitter. We're gonna have so much fun." "Oh my goodness. Where are your parents?" "Oh, they're just getting their bags ready to go." "Okay, well, let's just get straight into it." "Oh my goodness. What do you want to do?" Okay, you babysit and I'm just gonna go do stuff, I guess." At that moment, my mom came down, introduced herself, and basically showed her around the house while I went straight up to my room and started playing video games. And then afterwards, when my parents ended up leaving the driveway with the vehicle, my babysitter came up to my room and said, "Oh my goodness, Bubba, what are you doing?" I'm playing video games." "Why, what's up?" "Oh, well, like, I'm trying to figure out this TV, but I don't know how this works. Can you come show me?" "You don't know how to use a TV remote?" "No, I don't. My parents don't let me use TV." "Why?" "Oh, because they said I get addicted to it really easily." At that moment, me knowing that, I thought, okay, maybe if I turned on the TV, this babysitter would leave me alone. So I went downstairs with her. I ended up turning on my TV, and basically I ended up getting ready to go back up to my room. But before I ended up going back upstairs to play video games, my babysitter ended up yelling at me saying, "Oh, where are you going?" Going upstairs to my room." "Oh, can you get me some milk?" "You want milk?" "Yeah, can you please get me some milk? I really want some milk. I like milk." The way she was talking was super weird, and I didn't know if she was like trying to talk in like a baby voice to like make me like, you know, feel not intimidated. But I am not joking. She was the most annoying thing on the planet. But anyways, I ended up getting her a glass of milk, and when I gave her the glass of milk, she ended up telling me that she preferred milk in a water bottle. So I ended up getting a water bottle, emptying the water, pouring the milk in it, and then basically handing it to her. When I gave it to her, she was almost drinking it as if it was a baby bottle, and it was the most weirdest thing ever. But anyway, she ended up watching the TV, watching some cartoon for herself, while I went back upstairs and started playing video games. But I want to say 10 minutes into my team deathmatch Call of Duty match, out of nowhere, my babysitter ends up coming upstairs and walking into my room saying, "Oh, Baba, can I play?" "You wanna play?" "Yeah, can I please play?" I mean, this game's not really for kids." "Excuse me, I'm your babysitter." Yeah, I guess you are." And then I ended up standing up, giving her the controller, and she sat on my gaming setup playing video games. But as she was playing in the middle of a match, she ended up handing me her water bottle, or I guess milk bottle, and telling me to refill it. At this point, I was super annoyed because I didn't know who was the babysitter in this situation, me or her. But anyways, just to make sure I didn't get into any trouble, I ended up going downstairs, giving her milk, and then afterwards, she ended up asking me, "Oh, Bubba, what do you have for dinner?" I don't know. Didn't my parents like leave money for pizza? "Oh, can you order pizza?" I'm 12. I don't know how to order a pizza." "Okay, well, here, just use my phone." She ended up giving me her phone, and her wallpaper was like some Hello Kitty childish stuff. And at that moment, I realized that this girl was like a 17-year-old in like a 5-year-old's body. Like, she was the most annoying thing ever, and she literally ended up being the baby of, well, the babysitting situation, I should say. Anyways, going on with the story, I was super annoyed that entire night because basically I ended up taking care of her. And that wasn't even the weirdest part, because as it became nighttime, I remember this babysitter ended up coming into my room in the middle of the night as I'm trying to sleep. And she ended up coming up beside me and laying down beside me in her onesie. I remember she laid down beside me and I freaked out. I woke up saying, "Wait, what are you doing? I don't like sleeping in the dark alone. Can you just sleep with me?" Honestly, that was the only time I think ever in my life that a woman has asked to sleep with me and we didn't end up doing the devil's tango. Like, it was the most weirdest thing ever. Anyways, I remember the next day came and basically my parents ended up coming back home. They came back home and they walked into my room and they saw me and the babysitter sleeping beside each other and they kind of freaked out. Obviously, my babysitter said nothing happened and so did I, without, I guess, lying about it at this time, because usually it does happen, but this time it didn't. And one thing led to another. Well, that was a babysitter that was never gonna get hired again, especially at my house. There was also another time when this happened, and this was extremely weird, but keep listening because this story goes insane. Okay, so I've talked about a ton of babysitters on this channel, but the one babysitter that I did not talk about probably caused the most chaos. And on top of that, she was really sus. So today's story is gonna be a really wild one, and honestly, if you guys haven't pressed that like button and subscribe, I highly advise you guys do it, because it makes the channel grow and makes me realize how much I love you guys. Seriously, just click the subscribe button. You're dumb if you don't. But other than that, let's just jump into this insane story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another insane video. So today's video all starts back when I was just a teenager. And what age? Well, I was 15. Now you guys are probably wondering, wait, you're 15 years old and you had a babysitter? Yes, and the reason for that is because I was a pretty naughty kid growing up. Like, I would always go out and do the devil's tango. And well, let's just say that ended up getting me in trouble with my parents a lot of the time. So obviously, I remember one time my parents came up to me and they told me that they were going on vacation. My parents would always, you know, go out and have a good time and stuff, and we'll always went on vacation. Why? Well, because my family just loves each other so much to the point where they want to keep showing their love in other places. Kind of a weird flex, I know, but mom, dad, I love you and you love me, and you guys hopefully still do love me after this happened. Anyways, I remember when I was 15, I was basically kind of just hanging out, doing my own thing. You know, I would play video games, I would go out and meet women, but once again, my parents came up to me and said, "We're going on a little vacation. Don't worry where we're going. We left you with a babysitter. Is that okay?" And me, obviously, I was like, bruh, I'm 15. I don't need a babysitter. When I told my parents that, they obviously did not care. They're like, "No, you need to learn how to be responsible." I am responsible. "No, you're not. You keep hanging out with these women that make you cause very bad problems with yourself. Doing all these women will never do any good for you." Little do they know, I make money off literally telling these stories, so yay. I don't even know what to say there, but anyways, going on with the story. I remember from there, I was basically just trying to be like, you know, persistent on showing them that I was responsible enough. But obviously, when the day came that they had to leave, they ended up telling me that the babysitter was coming at 5:30, and I was upset. Obviously, I didn't know who the babysitter was, but I just went up to my room and decided not to say anything. I didn't care. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna stay up here and just relax. Now, this is the part of the story where things get a little interesting. Anyways, I remember the doorbell rang and I went downstairs and I ended up opening the front door. When I opened it, there was a girl that was there and she was wearing, well, something that an average babysitter wouldn't. The reason I say this is because most babysitters would wear clothes that make them comfortable and they can, you know, lounge around as the kid is doing whatever the hell they want to do. But this babysitter was wearing a full-on dress. She was wearing like this really black, sleek dress, and I was like, are you at the wrong house? "Oh, I'm the babysitter. I'm just here to take care of you." "What are you up to?" "I'm just upstairs playing video games." "Okay, are you the one that I'm taking care of? I was told there's only one kid." No, you're watching over me. My parents just don't trust me. It's a long story, but yeah, just come in. The living room's just there. You can just chill." She ends up walking in with her high heels on and ends up basically going to my living room and sitting down. Now, the whole time in my mind, I was thinking, why is this babysitter wearing a dress? This makes no sense. Is she trying to subdue me of all things? It wouldn't be the first time if you guys are the people that watch the channel regularly. I remember I ended up basically, like, you know, going in the kitchen, kind of like staring at her, wondering why she was wearing a dress. And to be honest, she was really attractive. And I remember as I kept staring at her, the babysitter obviously realized that I was watching her more than she was getting paid to watch me. So at this point, she ended up standing up and walking over to me saying, "Bubba, right?" "Yeah, what's up?" "I'm just curious, is everything okay? You seem a little off. Honestly, like, are you sick?" "Am I sick?" "No, I'm not sick. Why?" Honestly, I think you're getting a temperature. Here, let me feel." She ends up putting her hand on my forehead and says, "Honestly, yeah, I don't think you're feeling well." "I'm pretty sure I'm fine." "No, I gotta take you upstairs." She ends up grabbing me by the wrist and dragging me upstairs saying, "You gotta follow me." And when we went upstairs to my room, she instantly ends up putting me in bed and makes me basically go to sleep. By the way, it was only like 7:30, so obviously I wasn't gonna go to bed. I'm a 15-year-old that likes to go out party and do the devil's tango. So obviously at that point, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna lay down. Maybe I deserve a nap. You know what I mean? So I end up laying down, and I'm just laying down thinking this babysitter's up to something. It's kind of weird how, you know, she just wants me to go to bed so quick. But then after a while, I remember I ended up just getting up and just sitting down and playing my Xbox with my headset on. And with my headset, I ended up hearing weird noises. Not coming from the video game that I was playing, because obviously Call of Duty has like the same sounds over and over of bombs, you know, guns and shooting. This was a different different sound. And this sound I actually recognized because it was my front door opening. When my front door opened, I was super weirded out and I was like, wait, is someone here? Is it my parents? So instantly I ended up basically getting out of my room and running straight to the front door. And when I went to the front door, I saw my babysitter already opened it for a guy. Now me, I was thinking, oh, maybe it's the pizza guy because he was holding a pizza. But no, he wasn't the pizza guy. He was my babysitter's boyfriend. What, you guys thought I was gonna get the devil's tango this video? No, she was, but with a different man. And obviously the only person allowed to do the devil's tango in this house was me and my parents, obviously, but you know what I mean. Going on though, I remember I was freaking out. I'm like, what are you doing here? And this guy ends up walking up to me saying, oh, it's okay, little man, don't worry, I'm just here to watch over your babysitter. Wait, so he's watching over my babysitter and the babysitter's watching over me? What is this? What? I remember I ended up panicking and I was so confused, and honestly it got to the point where I ran upstairs and I decided to go tell my mom. But obviously as I was walking up the stairs, the babysitter saw that I pulled out my phone and she said, no, wait, don't tell your parents, please don't tell your parents. Your parents don't know about this. Well, they're gonna find out. What do you mean? No, they're not. We're not gonna do anything, I promise. Just be cool for once. Be cool. Now when someone challenges my coolness, obviously I decided to play cool. So what I ended up saying to her was, okay, well, like, just don't do anything weird, okay? Like, he can stay, but just don't be weird. They ended up both agreeing and I went back up to my room and I ended up putting on my headset and playing video games. Niggas probably thought that was it, right? They ended up just, you know, hanging out and stuff. No, they were doing a little bit more than just hanging out, because I remember as I was playing my video games, like half an hour later, I ended up hearing the TV beyond super loud. And I'm talking loud as if like we were in a movie theater loud. And at that point, I knew what that meant. I was 15. I'm not a dumb kid. Like nowadays, I'm not gonna lie to you, kids are smarter than the average person. Like we know when something sus is going on. Hell, that's probably why you're clicking on this video, because you guys understand the sus. So I remember basically I ended up getting off my headset. I ended up going downstairs and I'm like sneaking into, you know, my living room, seeing what's going on. And right at that moment, right as I turn the corner going into my living room, I see this girl getting absolutely ranched into her. And I'm like, what? And then instantly the guy looks at me saying, oh, and he ends up like doing the devil's cream right in front of me. That was the first time I saw another man's eggplant that wasn't my own. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I was disgusted. I got so disgusted to the point where I ended up telling him to leave. I ended up basically taking a photo and saying, if he doesn't leave right now, I'm sending this to my parents. And instantly from there, he got up and ended up leaving. So you guys thought that was it, right? He left, problem solved. No, this is where the story gets, well, I guess more in my direction, I should say. Because from there, I remember he was like really upset and the girl that was babysitting me was just stressing out. She didn't want to get ratted out. She didn't want me to be a snitch. And obviously I wasn't going to be a snitch. So what I decided to do was tell her, I'm not going to tell my parents this, but like, you got to do something for me. She ends up saying like, oh, like I can make you food. I can give you money. I ended up looking at her saying, do you really think I need that? And that's when she decided to go on her knees. And you know, I would say the rest, but obviously it's too sus and YouTube may demonetize this video, but I think you guys get where I was going with this. I ended up basically putting back my mark on the house where I was the only one that could do the devil's tango. And that's exactly what happened. It wasn't blackmail, I'm gonna say, because either way, I was never gonna show my parents. And obviously I deleted the photo right after I took it. I'm gonna be for real with you guys, but she didn't know that at the time. So it is what it is. Anyways, one thing led to another. She ended up basically, you know, telling me that, you know, my eggplant was bigger than her boyfriend's, and you know, it's just a bunch of stuff that doesn't need to be said. And all I'm gonna say is that this guy ended up having the most sussest babysitter become his sus babysitter, or I was the babysitter technically in that moment, but you know what, it's whatever. Anyways guys, that is basically it for today's amazing story. Make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel, but just wait, before we actually end the video, join the Discord server. I have a Discord server that I want all of you guys to hang out in and tell me your crazy stories that I could maybe tell on this channel. So click in the description down below for it, and like I always say, fall for more embarrassing stories. Peace out guys. When I was in high school, bringing weapons to school was like considered a big no-no. Like, I'm gonna be honest, kids still ended up bringing weapons to school, but in my head, I straight up thought that they were just flat out dumb. Like, I'm sorry, if you're gonna bring a weapon to school, you might as well just sharpen your pencil and act like it's like the purge, because like, I'm sorry, like, what? Anyways, I remember one time in high school, I was just kind of walking around and I remember entering my social studies class. And in my social studies class, we got this new girl who came in and she was like from like some foreign country. And I remember I sat beside her and I was just introducing myself. You know, I'm being a nice guy because I was kind of outgoing. Like I didn't look that bad. So I remember introducing myself, being a nice guy, all that cool stuff. And then, you know, I realized that her accent was like very heavy. Like it was like the average Russian accent, like nothing like Arnold Schwarzenegger worth, but like it was pretty rough. And I was just being nice to her, you know, introducing myself, all that stuff. And she told me that her and her boyfriend came from like a foreign country whatsoever. And then as class went over, I remember walking down the hallway. And as I was walking down the hallway, I saw the same girl, but she was like with her boyfriend and she was like pointing me out. And her boyfriend was like, I'm gonna be honest, her boyfriend looked like a total dumbass. like I can't be mean, but like he did. Like man couldn't pull his pants up. Honestly, like I want to give him a belt, but okay, I'm talking way too high and mighty for this. Okay, anyways, like I was saying though. So I remember he walked up to me and he literally just, you know, walked over or waddled over, I should say. I'm sorry, I can make fun of this guy like 2 ways till Friday. And when he walked up to me, he was like, yo, you hitting on my girl? I should have looked at him. I was like, sorry. Like he had the accent too, but he made sound effects with like his voice as he was talking. Like I don't know if he was talking third person or something, or he, you know, he's like a beatboxer, but basically he said something like this: skitty beat bop, bop, you know what I'm saying, dog? Like you trying to like be with my girl, you know what I'm saying? You hit my girl and stuff like that. You just bop, bop, bop. And in my head I'm thinking like, wait, does this guy just speak English to me? Dude, I was dead confused because I'm gonna be honest, I only spoke normal English at the time. So I remember saying like, no, like I'm not hitting up your girl. Like I'm not interested whatsoever. I just saw her in my class and she was new. I thought I should just say hi to her. And apparently that's like a big red flag for these guys that have like, you know, girlfriends. Cause I guess no guy wants to feel like they're not enough, which is fair enough. I can't argue with that. Basically, he was like arguing and yelling with me in this most weirdest language. I can't even say it was English, guys. But basically, from what I heard him say, he wanted to fight me, and the way he described us fighting was the most weirdest way possible. He straight up told me, yo, I'm gonna pop your head off with my gun, you know what I'm saying, go and go get you down, boy, you know what I'm saying? So don't even try hitting up my girl. I'm gonna scrap you right now after school. You know what, after school right now we're gonna scrap, me and you, we're gonna scrap, pull up AKs, you know what I'm saying? And me sitting there just thinking, what the heck did this guy just say? Literally just blew my mind. But at the same time though, yeah, no, basically he wanted to fight. So I remember I ended up walking away, and knowing I had a fight after school because of some foreign girl I just met kind of just blew my mind. Like I remember walking up to my friends that I guess were kind of my friends at the time and saying how like this guy wanted to fight me. And apparently everyone knew him already because he apparently got caught carrying a knife to school. And the fact that I was just in a conversation with this guy and the fact that he wanted to bring a gun and shoot an AK in my head to go pop kind of scared the life out of me. By the way, I do not condone any violence in the storyline. I should probably say that first. Anyways, yeah, so basically this guy wanted to fight me. He wanted to scrap me. I told my friends about it and he was caught with a knife earlier today. So that's already a red flag for me. Me knowing I'm probably gonna die in this situation, I was actually kind of worried. Like, you know that panic that you get in your chest when like something's about to go down? That was kind of me. But at the same time though, I did not want to be a wuss, and I wanted to actually, you know, man up because, you know, I was at that stage where I needed to, I guess. So I remember I messaged my dad. Okay, that's kind of awkward to say, but I messaged my dad saying, hey, dad, this guy wants to fight me and he might kill me. Instantly when my dad saw he wanted to kill me in the text messages, he literally drove down to the school and he messaged me saying, yo, I'm here at the school. If you need me, I got you. So I already had my dad like kind of like, you know, just on standby, I guess. I don't know. I made this seem like a whole operation when it was literally just about a guy who can't pull up their pants. Like I made this way too severe. So after school, I remember I straight up started walking towards the field because that's where he wanted to meet, I guess. And straight up, I remember seeing this guy with his girl and like 4 other guys just kind of standing there like as if they're like in a V shape, kind of like birds do when they're flying away to like south for the winter. Boy, I wish these guys were flying south for the winter. And they straight up like kind of just walked up there, and me sitting there with like my backpack acting like, you know, I was like 7, and I'm like, so what's up? When I walked up there, and the guy straight up walked up to me, he's like, yo, I'm gonna pop your head off. He literally pushed me on the ground and I fell, and you know, at that point I was like kind of worried. And then I remember this guy actually did end up pulling out his knife. That's right. So basically I was on the ground, the guy had a knife out, and then instantly right as this guy had his knife out, cops were called apparently, and I heard sirens. Straight up, when I heard sirens, these guys, like all of them ran away except the one guy that was literally standing there with a knife. And I remember his girlfriend just yelling at him saying to like run away or something, as if, you know, they were like doing something illegal, which I guess he technically was. And I remember a cop pulled up, he literally parked his car, instantly ran out of the vehicle, and literally ran and tackled this guy to the ground. So me laying down on the ground, at that point I was just kind of laying there looking up at the sky saying like, damn, this is a lot going on in one moment. Basically, he got knocked down, he got his handcuffs on, and he got straight to the vehicle, and the cop was asking me what the heck happened, like what did I do. Basically, he was thinking like I did something really bad. I remember just straight up telling him like I said hi to his girlfriend, and he didn't like that, so he pulled a knife on me. That's all I really said, because that's basically what happened. I couldn't like justify it anymore. And then my father came out of the vehicle. He saw what was going on, and he straight up, you know, just told the cop like how this guy, like, basically, you know, doing his fatherly figure stuff, which thank you, Dad, by the way, for that. And yeah, that's basically it. After that, the kid never actually ended up showing up to school again. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he's rotting in jail now. But moral of the story is, don't bring weapons to school. It's just not a smart thing. And before anyone says anything, like, if you're one of those kids that are thinking, you know, gang life is everything, I'm sorry. I just cannot wait till the real world hits you, because it's gonna hit you hard. Okay, for some reason, and I will never understand this, I'm gonna be brutally damn honest, okay? I have no idea how this happened, but you guys blew up my video of my first fight. And to this day, I'll never understand why. Like, I love you guys for it. Like, seriously, it has over 1 million views on YouTube, and it's insane. This channel has been blowing up ever since. Like, we already have 2 plaques. We're going insane. We're going sicko mode with all these amazing videos, and I love you guys for it. But this story goes out to the people that wanted to see more fight stories, because apparently a lot of you guys were like, there's no way that was your first fight. Doesn't make any sense. You can't even fight in the story. And that is true. I didn't actually fight. I technically just got pushed on the ground and cops came. Sorry for everyone that I just spoiled the story for. If you guys still want to go check that out and go show support on it, go for it. Seriously, it's a good story. But other than that, let's get into this crazy new one. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy story. So this story takes place back in high school. Back in high school, I am not gonna lie, like I said, I wasn't a fighter. But from, you know, my first fight compared to this fight that I'm about to tell you about, I want to say it was like a 1-year gap. So think of like the first fight story and then 1 year later. Because obviously, you know, my first fight story was like, I don't know, like my first year of high school. And this was like my second year. And this was when I was like, you know, more in the F-boy phase. So, you know, your boy's getting a little trouble. And I'm not gonna lie, I've had a lot of fights back in my day. I've done a lot of like, you know, fights back in high school and stuff. I wouldn't say I wasn't like, you know, winning all of them, and nor was I like the biggest fighter. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I wasn't. But you know, encountering people in the type of F-boy way I was pretty easy. But going on, let's get straight into this. So back in high school, I remember there was a really cool chick that I actually was like generally just good friends with. As rare as it is, you know, me being friends with a chick, this chick was actually considerably like a really nice girl. She was nice to me. She was calm. She was relaxing. Like she, how do I put this? She had like no way of like, you know, showing me that she was attracted to me. But at the same time, that's probably because she had a boyfriend at the time. And I remember, you know, she'd always like talk to me, help me with homework and stuff. And, you know, we'd keep things actually really casual. You know, me and her, we never planned on doing anything. We never talked, you know, in any way as if, you know, we were attracted to each other at all, which was a good thing at first. But then I started realizing like over time, she would come into class really sad or really upset or just annoyed in general. And obviously me trying to be a good friend, I'm just straight up like, yo, like, is everything all right? Like, you okay? And she told me how like, you know, things were getting hard in her life and stuff like that. At first I thought it was like a family thing. So I kind of backed off, because I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to family, like unless you're really that close with a person, you shouldn't get involved. But then I started talking to her even more, and I kind of like not really pushed her, but in a way I kind of just said like, you know, like if you need me, I'm here. And she ended up telling me the truth. Apparently her boyfriend and her were having issues and stuff, and she was planning on ending it, but she just couldn't get that full push to do it. So, you know, me, you know, being a nice guy I was like, oh, well, I mean, like, do you want to like hang out or like talk about it and stuff? And for some reason she said yes right on the spot. Now I know what everyone's thinking, like, oh, you're taking a girl with like, you know, a bad relationship and trying to like take her out of it. No, that's not the case at all. I wasn't trying to take her out of the relationship. I was just trying to give her a new perspective. Actually, no. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. It did actually kind of seem like that. I can't deny the inevitable. Anyways, I remember me and her, we went to the mall. We started walking around the mall and stuff, because if you guys may know from previous stories, this mall was right beside my high school. Okay, the mall was literally right beside it. I don't know how many times I'm gonna be putting this in like stories and telling you guys like anytime about like me going to the mall and stuff. Just remember, it was right beside my high school. I'm gonna say it a lot, so just get used to it. But going on though, yeah, so we went to the mall, we started talking, and we started talking about, you know, how things are going and stuff. And I remember we were like walking around to the point where she actually wanted ice cream. And of course me, I was like, you know what, like, yeah, sure, let's go get some ice cream. Poggers, my dude. I didn't actually say poggers. That's weird. Don't say that in front of a girl. I learned that the hard way. But no, basically we went over to the ice cream and we got some ice cream together, and we sat down at the food court. And when we sat down at the food court, I recognized her boyfriend showing up at the mall on his phone, and you can already tell he was on Snap Maps looking for his girlfriend, which is kind of, well, really weird. But no, straight up, I remember he was walking around the food court and he saw me with his girlfriend, and he basically walked down to us like a plane, dude. Like he was like soaring to us. Like it was scary, dude. And I'm not even joking. Like I was kind of panicking. I was like, oh crap, like this is not gonna be a good situation. So I remember me with my weird highlighter jacket, I literally stood up in front of him. I'm like, oh, like what's going on and stuff like that, you know, trying to be nice to the guy, you know, to make it seem like, you know, nothing was going on. And of course, he had to make it a big scene, which I don't blame him in a way. Like, to this day, I actually still don't blame him because I'm gonna be honest, it was a big deal. You know, me being in front of, like, you know, him with his girlfriend without him knowing, it was kind of cheeky. I'm not gonna lie. And to this day, like, I always think about that and rerun the situation in my head, and I think, damn, that was a mistake. But no, like I said, though, going on, he literally saw me and he was like coming up to me and he's acting all like tough. And by acting tough, I mean, I don't know why, but a lot of kids in my area, when they think of acting tough, they think about, you know, basically acting like a gang kid or acting like he's a part of a gang or something like that. It was kind of weird. And he walked up to me, he was like, oh, what you doing, bro? Huh? What you with my girl for, bro? What are you trying to do, squad? You trying to get them down, bro? You trying to scrap down right now in the mall right now? And me, of course, speaking only proper English, it was kind of weird hearing him say that. You know, like, I'll never understand how gang kids talk. Like, I don't know why, but like me as a Canadian, you know, I speak proper English, or at least I try to in a way for these videos. But I guess a lot of kids back in like high school, they talk, you know, skitty papa, you know, and act like they're part of a SoundCloud rap crew and just, you know, get high all the time. I don't know, it's just depressing, dude. Like, seriously, if you're one of those kids, change your life because you're not getting anywhere with it. So like I was saying though, straight up, I remember I was like doing my own thing and I was like, damn, like, bro, like, I'm sorry, like, it's not what it looks like at all. And he straight up gets pissed. He's like, nah, dude, like, you're going down like right now. And I'm not even joking. This guy, he started throwing his hands at me like crazy. He was punching me left and right and I was getting hit. I was. And I'm not gonna lie, I put my arms up to like defend my face because of course your boy wears glasses, so he doesn't want to get those ruined, because I'm not ruining a $300 pair like glasses. Like, I'm just not. It doesn't make sense to me. And yeah, so he starts throwing punches like crazy. Me, I start kind of blocking him as best as I can. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't the best at it because this was only like my second fight ever. Well, technically second. And I remember as I'm blocking him, I start freaking out. I take off my glasses and I ram him to the ground. How did I do that? I have no idea. To this day, I question how I rammed him to the ground, but apparently like my maneuver was straight up bend over. Bend over. Sorry. Yeah, I straight up bent over and rammed him up against the food court wall. And from there, I started punching his liver, which I don't know. I guess I saw in Kung Fu Panda was really, I don't know, a good way to actually hit someone down. And he started like straight up hitting me in the back of the head until eventually I just dropped on the floor. He started kicking me and then his girlfriend yelled. His girlfriend straight up yelled, stop, just stop. And right at that spot, he actually freaked out. He's like, what's wrong? Like, this guy, like, you're cheating on me with him. And the girl went to explain to him, I'm breaking up with you. What? You're telling me that I took a beating just for you to actually have the balls to say, like, you know, break up with your boyfriend? Like, is this for real? Like, I was actually like kind of pissed off and stressed at the same time. But at the same time, the back of my head was hurting like a crazy maniac because I didn't really care. And I remember, like, you know, the mall security came. He asked about the situation. Me, I'm just laying there on the ground like it just hurt like crazy. Obviously, cops would have to be called because everyone was saying how, you know, like, he beat me in the back of the head. He got arrested. Me, I had to go home. So I went home. My parents were asking if I was okay and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, the girl ended up texting me the next day saying like, hey, like, thanks for taking that fight for me. Bro, I didn't fight for you. He fought me because he thought I was doing something wrong. And yeah, it just kind of sucked overall how basically I took a beating for a chick. Don't get me wrong. Taking a beating for a chick's never a bad thing if they're like actually... Sorry, wait, I shouldn't say chick. Sorry, let me rephrase that. You shouldn't take a beating for a girl unless it's actually your girl. But I don't know, I guess long story short, tough luck. Okay, so one thing that I've noticed is that YouTube boxing has actually gotten like really big. Like, don't get me wrong, I saw the first fights of when like KSI and like Logan Paul were like such a big deal. But now seeing that KSI is officially fighting people like Tommy Temper for some reason, like really like face Temper out of all people who could box. I don't know, honestly, I think it's gone so downhill. And that leads me to the question, if I had to box someone, and I mean literally any YouTuber, who would you think I would box? I was thinking about doing Austin Luna, or maybe I would even box Scrubs. I don't know. I'll literally box anyone. I'm gonna be brutally honest. Because, like, don't get me wrong, being in the ring is exciting for me, and I think it's pretty cool. And this story is about how I actually got into the ring one time with my high school bully. And trust me, this story does get intense, so make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's get straight into the story. All right, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So this story starts back, actually, funny enough, I want to say in my grade 11 year. Now, in grade 11, I was already really known throughout the school for being with a lot of different girls and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I was like a major player and always doing the devil's tango. But one thing I never realized as I was doing all these things is that a lot of guys would envy me. And by envy, I mean be jealous of me. Now, at first, I didn't really care why, nor did I really want to bother, because either way, I still had the boys that were like my close friends that understood me and well enough to know that I'm not that kind of person to really care for the girls I've been with. But for some reason, there was one guy in my school who would always always pick on me. But not only pick on me, but pick on a lot of different other people. Now, don't get me wrong, this guy in no way was he like charming or was he attractive or nothing like that whatsoever. But one thing I can say was that a lot of women would turn him down, and a lot of the women that turned him down have actually done the devil's tango with me. Anyways, I remember one day I was sitting in the cafeteria, just kind of chilling, being on my own, and I was just kind of just writing a paper that I had to do for English class. And out of nowhere, the guy was literally coming into the cafeteria, the bully that, well, no one really liked. And I remember he was just kind of walking around the cafeteria, and I found it really odd. But then I remember a girl ended up running into the cafeteria and running into him saying, "Oh, hey, I got your message. You want to talk to me? Like, what's going on?" And as I was overhearing their conversation, because they were literally like right behind me, I remember this guy that like no one liked in my school literally said, "Oh, like I was just wondering, like, do you want to like maybe like go out sometime?" As I was hearing this, I was really like kind of like weirded out, but at the same time almost kind of laughing, because I don't know, I found it funny. Just, I don't know, it was just a funny moment. Like, don't you guys laugh when like you hear something like really awkward come out of someone else's mouth? I know I do. So basically when I heard that, I was kind of like giggling, and then out of nowhere I remember seeing this girl. She looked at me and then she looked back at the guy and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. It's just like, trust me, it's not you, it's me. Like, I just don't think I'm ready for a relationship yet." And when a girl says this, I'm saying this right now, it is the most most BS thing that any girl could say. Like, no joke. When a girl would say that, I'm saying this right now, the problem isn't her. It's definitely you. So to all the guys that's been told, "Oh, like, it's nothing with you, it's me." No, just know it is actually you. Like, figure out your stuff, bro. But basically, I remember hearing that and I literally couldn't hold anymore, and I literally got up and left the cafeteria. I didn't want to be mean and literally laugh right in front of him, so I decided to be nice and left the cafeteria and started laughing when I was going down the hallway. But as I was walking down the hallway, I remember out of nowhere, the girl that was literally just asked out came up beside me and said, "Oh, hey, Bubba, like, what are you doing?" I remember I was just walking with her and I'm like, "Oh, nothing, you know, just chilling, just hanging out and stuff. What about you?" And me and her, we started walking together to her next class. I remember as we were walking though, this guy ended up going through the outside cafeteria doors and entering in the school where we just walked to. And when we entered in, he literally saw me and her literally standing together and talking. Now, the girl's back was facing him, so obviously the girl didn't notice he was there. And this girl, for some reason, had the gall, and I mean the literal gall, to literally ask me out right in front of him. No joke. She was like, "Oh, like, hey, I was just wondering, like, you're really cute, and like, I'm not really doing anything this Saturday. Do you want to like maybe go out sometime?" I remember I looked at the girl and I looked at the guy behind him, which is like the bully that literally just asked her out. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be for real with you. I think I'm busy that day. You know, I'm just chilling." And then this guy was so infumed, like literally in flames. Like, I'm not joking. He literally looked like the character from Inside Out, the red character with like the red flames coming out of him. Yeah, he literally looked just like that. Mad at me, dude. Like, he was so mad to the point where he decided to come into our conversation, pop up behind the girl and say, "Oh, okay, I get it now. So you're gonna ask him out, but you're not gonna go out with me even though I asked you. What kind of woman are you? What does this guy have that I don't?" And right as he says that, he ends up pushing me up against the lockers. Now, at this point, I'm not gonna lie, I was in grade 11. I ain't no wuss at this time and age. So I remember I literally stood up against him. I'm like, "Hey, what do you mean? What's wrong with me, bro?" And then afterwards, we start kind of like, you know, pushing each other in the hallway. And then a teacher comes out of the classroom, says, "Hey, boys, this is not the setting for a fight. Seriously, take it to the office." So me and this dude, we end up going to the office, and, you know, we had a talking to, blah, 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 all that office stuff where the principal really never knows what's going on. And then afterwards, me and this guy, we ended up walking away and going our separate ways. Now, usually I would hope the story would end here, but sadly it didn't. Because I remember one time my buddy saw me and he was like, "Yo, bro, like, I'm taking this new boxing gym, like, course. Do you want to, like, come with me? I heard you're, like, kind of experienced in boxing." Which, since I did, like, boxing in, like, middle school, and this was, like, just for a bit, and that's a story for a different time. But, you know, boxing in middle school, I had, like, little experience, but at the same time, I was still a kid, so I never really, like, got back into it. I don't know. I just prefer video games instead. But when he invited me, I remember this was a good friend of mine, and I decided to try it out. So I remember in grade 11, we ended up going to this boxing gym. Now, this boxing gym was, like, really, like, run down. Like, it was, like, one of those ones that you would see, like, Rocky Balboa go into, like, in, like, the movies. It was just a basic rundown boxing gym. And I won't lie, it was pretty cool. I remember me and my buddy were just practicing sparring, and, you know, we were punching the bag and doing the same old usual things that boxers usually do when they train. And then out of nowhere, I'm not joking when I say this, out of nowhere, this guy that literally was basically a bully at my school walked into the boxing gym. And when he saw me, I'm not joking when I say this, he literally drops his duffel bag that he was carrying with his boxing gloves in it and walks up to me saying, "Oh, that's good. I found you here, little bum." And he ended up pushing me on the ground. I remember I looked at him like, "Dude, you need to calm down. Like, seriously, this is not going to get you anywhere. Like, what do you want to do, huh? What are you going to do, huh?" And basically started, like, you know, yelling at him somewhat in the boxing gym. And then out of nowhere, these two guys ended up coming up behind us both, like these two really big guys, like that were like really built, and kind of just started pulling us back and like basically making sure that we don't actually hurt each other with our bare knuckle fists. And then afterward, basically, we ended up getting separated apart, and the guys at the boxing gym were talking to us and saying that if you guys want to fight each other, there's only one place to fight, and that's in the ring. So I remember basically me and him, we signed it up for the ring, and basically we were going to do an actual boxing fight, like an actual boxing match. But obviously we had to schedule the ring and everything, so we ended up scheduling it for Saturday. Now, the day I went to the boxing gym was on Wednesday, and basically throughout the 2 days of me going to school and going to the boxing gym to practice for the fight, everyone in the school started finding out about it. Girls at my school started finding out, and a lot of my homies at school ended up figuring out what was going on, and basically all wanted to go. So it got to the point where I want to say over 50 people in my school, and I'm not gonna lie, I think 30 of them were actually chicks and 20 of them were guys that were good friends of mine, literally ended up showing up on Saturday to the boxing gym to watch me beat this guy. We all ended up going to the boxing gym. We ended up basically, you know, getting ready and stuff, and I started practicing on my side of the ring while he was practicing on his side of the ring. We were sparring for a bit, you know, practicing with our partners, and then afterwards we got ready and we sat down, we got ready for boxing. Now, I'm not gonna lie, we only used like, I think 6-pound gloves. We didn't use like any actual like heavyweight gloves that were like, you know, usually 10-pound gloves that most boxing people use in like the actual rings. We're using basic gloves. We had helmets on, obviously, because we were not really planning on knocking someone out. I personally like my face, you know, I like to keep my face for YouTube. And basically me and him, we ended up basically going to our sides, prepping up, talking to our guys, and then afterwards we sat down, we got ready. The announcer came on stage and basically said, all right, in this corner we have a Rash Bubba Moini, and in this corner we have, well, I'm not gonna say his name because, you know, the story is about him and I don't want any legal trouble. So yeah, going on. Basically from there, the bell ended up ringing. We ended up going up against each other. We started fighting. I ended up punching him, he was punching me, you know, the basic same old that you usually see in the boxing ring. But then afterwards, this guy has the audacity, and I mean the audacity, to punch me in the back of the head. And when he punched me in the back of the head, don't get me wrong, it hurt, but it was a very not legal move, meaning that he was not allowed to punch me in the back of the head. It is like a basic boxing rule you're not allowed to do. But obviously I didn't complain about it. I just moved on from it and said, hey, you want to fight like that? We can do that. So basically from there, I remember this guy was a bit taller than me, by the way. I was only like 5'7" at the time, I think. And basically this guy was like, I want to say almost 6 foot. So one thing I really had to do was that since he had more of a reach on me, I ended up punching his liver a lot. And when you hit someone in the stomach that is really taller than you, it hurts a lot, especially when you hit the liver area. At least that's what you learn when you're doing basic fighting training. And then from there, basically one thing led to another. I ended up punching his liver. His face ended up going down, and that's when I uppercutted him. I no joke uppercutted the guy, and basically I remember he ended up going on the ground. He was on the ground, but I guess he didn't really understand boxing rules because he ended up staying on the ground longer than 10 seconds. At this point, I remember the bell rang and I'm like, oh my goodness, I actually just won. Everyone started freaking out. Everyone started like, you know, yelling, congratulations, yay. And don't get me wrong, it felt good, but as he was laying on the ground crying, I basically saw in his eyes that he was really upset when he saw the girl basically cheering for me that he asked out the other day. And at that point, I remember I basically helped him get up and I dabbed him up and said, bro, good fight. And then afterwards, he kind of just ended up being a good friend of mine. And to this day, we're still friends. Well, somewhat. I don't know. I don't really talk to him much anymore, but hey, what can I say? It was a good fight and I ended up getting friends out of it. So as you guys may know, it's still Pride Month. And actually, the more I think about it, I have a crazy story to tell you guys, but before I get into it, please don't cancel me. You gotta understand, this was back when, well, I guess bullying was considered good. And on top of that, honestly, this story does get really intense, so I suggest you guys leave a like and subscribe. And to all the people a part of the LGBTQ watching this video, please watch the video through before you guys make an opinion on me. But anyways, let's just jump straight into it. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to an insane story. So today's story takes place back in my grade 9 year. Now, I'm not gonna lie, in grade 9, I looked like this. So obviously, I wasn't the slayer that I was supposed to be. Don't get me wrong, I still did a lot of the devil's tango, but not as much as I did in grade 10. Going on though, I remember in grade 9, I decided to take a course called drama. Now, drama is a course where it's basically theater, where basically you learn how to like basically act in a way. I don't know how else to explain it other than me trying to act wasn't the coolest thing to see. But the main reason why I actually took it was because I had a really bad stutter back when I was in high school. And me having a stutter back in high school wasn't a good thing because how else am I supposed to pull girls? I don't want to go all phase adapt on them. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember basically one time in drama, we were doing this like exercise where we had to read out a very long script. And me, well, with my stutter, it makes me a lot worse than how I'm actually supposed to. Like, I can read, but not that well with a stutter. So I remember I went up in front of the stage and I started basically talking. I started basically reading it out, but in some parts, I would randomly just have a stutter. And knowing this, I remember I saw some girls laughing, but then afterwards, there was one dude in my class that kept laughing at me for some reason. And he kept laughing to the point where he actually ended up saying, "Dude, like, you suck at reading." I remember when he said that, I kind of just froze and just got really awkward. I didn't know what to say, and I didn't know why this dude was picking on me, like literally back off. But honestly, I guess he was just trying to get everyone's attention and be the class clown. And that's one thing I realized over the weeks of me going to class. The same guy would always, and I mean always, try to get attention from everyone. And it was so weird because he would walk in with the most weirdest outfits as if he was Lady Gaga. Like, I don't know what this dude's problem was, but in my mind, he was just being super weird and really toxic. I remember as weeks went on, we had this school play that was coming up. And obviously, the school play, everyone wants to be the main character, except me. I remember I didn't want to do it, and the play was Peter Pan, by the way, if you guys really want to know. And I remember I did not want to be Peter Pan. But obviously, don't get me wrong, a lot of people thought it would be funny for me to be Peter Pan because I was the most youthful looking. Like, I don't know, look at me and tell me if I should be Peter Pan. Like, in my opinion, I shouldn't be. And I remember my teacher ended up walking up to me in the middle of class and saying, "Oh, Bubba, I was wondering, do you want to be Peter Pan for this play? The whole class thinks it's a good idea for you to be." For me to be Peter Pan is what I told her after. "Yeah, I think you should be Peter Pan." I'm good, thanks, is what I ended up saying. And then I remember I ended up walking away, and my teacher, she was disappointed. So what she decided to do next was pull the whole class together, basically making a class meeting with me standing in the middle, and basically said, "Everyone, I think Bubba should be Peter Pan, and I need a raise of hands for everyone that agrees." I remember at that moment, since the teacher ended up saying something, the whole class ended up putting their hand up for me to be Peter Pan. And me, I was super embarrassed. But then obviously, the one dude in my class realized that I was getting a lot of attention after the vote was done. And I remember when the vote was like basically over, all the students in my class ended up walking up to me saying how I should, prepare myself, how it's gonna be super fun. And honestly, it felt good to have a lot of attention. But honestly, when I saw this dude looking at me, I remember he walked up to me saying, "You're gonna be Peter Pan? You can't even freaking speak. You're such a loser." "Dude, what's your problem?" is what I told him afterwards. And he basically kept telling me, "What do you mean, what's my problem? You're just a dumbass." "Whoa, dude, like seriously, grow up," is what I told him. But obviously he wasn't having it, and he just kept messing with me, and it got to the point where he actually got physical with me and pushed me on the ground. Now at this point, I'm not gonna lie, I have anger issues. I mentioned this in my other video. I don't like getting upset really easily, but I have that issue. So I remember when I stood back up, I remember I ended up pushing this guy on the ground, and he ended up saying, "For a boy, you're really weak." And that's when I ended up getting on top of him and started punching him out. I'm not joking. I started punching his face over and over and over and over. And the teacher was out of the classroom for some reason, so I just kept going at it as all these guys were just looking at me thinking that this dude is batshit crazy. But anyways, I kept punching him, and then one thing led to another. I remember there was a girl in my class who was a part of the LGBTQ club. She walked up to me saying, "Bubba, what are you doing? You would never hurt a girl." "What?" is what I said. "A girl? Where's the girl in this situation?" And then I remember when I looked down, this guy was like, "Actually, I identify as a girl." "No, you don't," is what I said. And then afterwards, let's just say I got a lot of drama happening in my class because, well, a lot of people in the class apparently was convinced he was a girl when it was very, very obvious that it was a dude. Like, I'm sorry, okay? If you sound like a man, look like a man, and have the genes of a man, you're probably a dude. And I'm not gonna lie, once again, this was back in grade 9, so don't, cancel me for this, but that was just my thought process back when I was younger. Anyways, after the whole situation happened, I remember I started panicking and thinking, why in the world does my whole class think this person's a girl? And then that's when I realized. He ended up basically saying, actually, I am a girl. I'm a transgender." "You're a what?" "A transgender," is what he said once again. And I wasn't convinced. I remember what I ended up doing was I ended up saying, "Wait, so you have a vagina. Is that what you're saying?" No, I don't have one of those, but that doesn't define who I am." "I mean, do you have tits?" is what I ended up saying afterwards. That doesn't identify who I am," is what he said once again. And I remember me back in grade 9, well, I was really hard-headed. So I remember I ended up basically right afterwards when he said that he didn't have either of those things, I ended up walking up to him and saying, "Then you're a dude," and it ended up walking away. When I said that, I remember my teacher just ended up walking back into the classroom. And right away, right as I said that, this dude that was really upset at me, claiming he was a transgender, ran up to me and punched me in the back of the head. Obviously, we both got in trouble. We ended up going back to the office. And when we went back to the office, I remember I ended up getting in trouble for basically hitting a girl. I remember my parents ended up getting a phone call, and I was like really shook because there was no way that they were going to tell my parents I hit a girl. But they ended up doing that, and my parents ended up coming to the school, and I got in serious trouble. My parents ended up walking into the office saying, "Bubba, why did you hit a girl? What, you would never hit a girl." Because I live with 4 sisters, so obviously me hitting a girl was really not the case ever. I was raised not to do that. But then afterwards, I remember my dad walked in really upset, and he said, "Bubba, where's the girl you hit?" I ended up pointing at the dude that was sitting on the chair, and then that's when both my parents looked at me and started laughing. They said, "No, seriously, where's the girl you hit?" "Mom, Dad, that's the girl apparently," is what I said afterwards. And then one thing led to another. Basically, my principal ended up explaining what a transgender was to my parents, and my parents are really strict and religious, so you already know my parents weren't gonna be convinced. And one thing led to another. My parents ended up taking me out for ice cream. Yeah, I know, I am cool enough to go out for ice cream after beating someone up, but that was basically me back in high school bringing up a transgender. You gotta understand, back then things were very different. The LGBTQ stuff wasn't really in my mind, and to be honest, I wasn't educated on it. Obviously nowadays I guess things are different, but cancel me if you want. All I'm gonna say is this was back in grade 9. And I'm 22 now, so come on, like, you guys can kind of calculate what's going on here. But I mean, if you guys do have any more questions about this story or want to know more, make sure you guys join me live on Kick streaming and telling these crazy stories face to face. Now, this story is about how I fought an anime kid. And honestly, before I get into it, I just want to mention, I don't condone any fighting. Like, if you want to fight someone, go for it if you really think it's for self-defense. But if it's just for kicks and giggles, I'm sorry, there's no point. There is 0 point of harming someone. So don't harm anybody, be nice about it. But this story does get hilarious. So I suggest you guys click that subscribe button if you guys haven't already for more crazy stories. And on top of that, if you guys haven't followed me on Twitch yet, I highly advise it because I am live right now as we speak. So if you guys want to talk to me live, go for it. Honestly, heavily worth it. And like I always say, let's just get straight into this. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy story. So this story takes place back in high school. So back in high school, there was a theater club. And in theater club, I'm not gonna lie, like, there was a lot of really geeky, weird kids. Like, it got to the point where I'm not gonna lie, I think everyone in theater, like, ended up doing the devil's tango with each other, and they all acted like siblings, so it was like really weird. Like, people would know each other so well to the point where like all the guys knew like how big they were, and like it was just super weird. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say there. Now, one thing I won't lie about though was that I was a theater kid, but I was never in depth like that much into theater. Like, I kind of just took the course just so I can get extra credits. Now, you guys are probably wondering, okay, when does the anime kid show up? And I'll explain that. Just hold on. I remember one day my friend came up to me in theater class, and he's like, "Yo, like, a lot of these kids are going to like an anime convention. I think it'll be fun if we like go, but not like wear any costumes though. That's weird." And I remember I looked at him like, what's the point of going to an anime convention if everyone's gonna be just weird? And then he told me, "Dude, the girls are so weird that they'll literally do the devil's tango with anyone there, bro. Like, trust me, you want to go, man. Like, some of these girls are wearing cat costumes and like hot nurse outfits." Now, I'm not gonna lie, back in high school, anything for action was action, okay? Either it was some love action, fighting action, or even just some weird action. Honestly, I just went for it. And going through life saying yes gets you to some pretty mysterious places. Anyways, going on. I remember I looked at him and I'm like, sure, like, why not? Like, okay, let's go if you say so. So I remember the next day we ended up getting our things, getting a camera and getting everything set up, and we decided to go for this anime convention. This anime convention was downtown. So I remember I had to drive my car all the way downtown, and as I was heading there, I remember looking outside the street, just seeing so many weird kids in like these weird anime costumes, and there's like these boys with like pink hair, and like there's some girls like wearing some like really tight outfits. Like, it was insane. It was everything that my friend said it would be. But then I remember as I was parking my car and everything towards the convention, I remember seeing like a group of guys, and there's like a group of Asian guys, not being racist, okay? I'm just saying they were an Asian group, okay? I think most of us in high school know like that Asian friend group with all like the smart kids. We all know what that friend group is, okay? It's not racist, it's just what it is. Anyways, I was going towards there, and I remember seeing them walk down, and they saw we weren't wearing costumes. And I remember they came up to us and they're like, "What anime are you guys from?" And I was just like, Batman? Pokemon? Yeah, we're Pokemon trainers. Yeah. They looked at us and laughed, and I remember like kind of being embarrassed because let's be real here. You're going to an anime convention not wearing an anime costume. It's kind of awkward. But anyways, we got our passes. We ended up walking and then we walked around. Obviously, my main reason for being there was seeing some hot girls. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. If there's two things I knew was that the two hottest girls on the planet are gamer girls and anime girls. For some reason, they're really hot. Like, have you guys seen Valorant chicks nowadays? Like, holy smokes. But anyways, going on. I remember I was walking around with my friend, and as we were walking around, I remember seeing this one girl. Now, this girl looked outstanding, and she was actually pretty hot. And I remember I was like, you know, just kind of like chilling near the concession stand. And I remember my friend looked at me saying, bro, like, why don't you just go walk up to her and like just, you know, hit her up, you know, ask for a number or something. And I said, you know what? Like, whatever. Sure, I'm down. Let's go check this out. So I remember I walked down and I actually got a chocolate bar because I didn't know what else would be good. And I gave her a bar of chocolate. I gave her a bar of chocolate saying, hey, like, how you doing? And she looked at me and she's like, ooh, hi, how are you doing? At that point, I was really weirded out that she said, ooh, but you know, it is what it is. And I remember I looked at her, I'm like, oh, you know, just kind of chilling, you know, hanging out at the anime convention. See, what animes do you watch? And then she looked at me saying, do you not recognize where I'm from? I look at her, I'm like, no, I don't. I'm sorry. I think she was like Sakura from like Naruto. Like, she had the pink hair, so I'm guessing like, you know, it was her. I don't know, dude. Like, there's so many girls in anime that like to the point where like I don't even realize it. Unless you're trying to recite like a hentai I watched, like I have no idea. Anyway, she looked at me and she's like, ooh, like I'm from like Naruto. And you know, the way she talked really bugged me, but I get it. You know, she was trying to be in character, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, me and her were walking around the convention, and I remember she was introducing me some people and stuff like that, showing me what animes are good, which ones are not. Actually, she's the one who got me into Naruto, funny enough, so that was pretty cool. And then I remember we ended up going towards this group of like Naruto kids, and like I love Naruto. Naruto is one of my favorite animes nowadays, but back then I didn't know much about it. All I know is that it was just a bunch of weird kids wearing headbands, just doing weird symbols with their hands, dude. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I thought some of them were on like some crack or something. Like, I have no idea. I remember I walked up to them, I'm like, hey, like, what's going on, guys? One of the guys looked at me saying, dude, like, what are you supposed to like be? Like, you're not an anime? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not. I forgot my costume. It's in my car, I think, or something. I don't know. I was basically playing it cool because I didn't know what else to say. And then afterwards, for some reason, he kept giving me a weird look. And for some reason, this like girl that I was talking to and the one that introduced me to all of them started getting really close to me. Like, it got to the point where like my arm was basically around her walking around. I know, not a good look, but you know, it is what it is. And let's just say he was very upset. Like, he kept eyeballing me. He kept getting all pissed off and stuff. Like, I don't know what it was. Anyways, going on though, I remember we walked around. We ended up going to this like noodle place. Like, I don't know. They wanted to like eat this thing called pho. I don't know what it is, but like, who calls a soup pho? Like, why is it pho of all things? Like, is it like photon? I don't know. Anyways, going on. We were like eating at the place, and I remember I was sitting down beside the girl, and basically I remember I had to go to the bathroom. So I got up, I was going to the bathroom, and then this girl started following behind me for some reason. And when she was following behind me, as I'm about to enter the bathroom, towards beside me, I realized that the guy that like did not like me at all walked into me. And he had like a bowl of pho in his hand, and pho was like really hot, and he spilled it all on himself. And I remember he was so pissed off. Like, he looked at me like with anger. And then out of nowhere, he like was like all like raging and stuff. He put the bowl on the table, and he's like, do you know what you did to my anime costume? Like, oh my goodness, like, bro, you're like blind. In my head, I'm thinking, why is he talking like that? What is he on? And he just started getting more upset and stuff like that. And I remember the girl that was with me, and for some reason was behind me when I was heading towards the bathroom, looks towards the guy and says, well, like, don't worry about it. Like, don't be mad, Sasuke. In my head, I'm thinking, why are you calling him Sasuke? I thought his name was Tim. Like, I don't know. I was just super confused. And then he gets all enraged and stuff. And for some reason, he does like this battle cry. And then right when he does this battle cry, I remember like the store owner is like, oh, like, you guys gotta leave the store. Like, you guys can't be doing this right here and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, dude, like, I'll leave. Like, whatever. I won't pay for the food. So I left not paying for the food. And I remember as I was outside just going back to towards the convention, this kid grabs me by the shoulder, turns me around, and starts yelling at me. He's like, do you know what you have done to me? And like, he started doing these like weird symbols with his hands. Like, I thought he was gonna cast like some kind of voodoo spell on me. And I'm like, dude, you can move your hands as much as you want. I'm not gonna fight you. And then he puts his like legs spread, and he's like, you know, using his like symbols with his hands. Like, I thought he knew karate. Honestly, I thought this was like a weird ninja karate thing that he was doing. But then apparently like all the guys he was with were like freaking out like at all the symbols he was pulling. And I remember as a joke, I ended up doing one symbol, and I just flipped him off with the bird because I don't know what symbols are. Like, okay, now I do actually, because like, you know, hell, I watch Naruto nowadays, but I'm talking about like back then, I didn't know what they were, so I just flipped the bird on him, and he was all upset, and he just decided to like Naruto run into my stomach. Like, full on, he just battle cried going, Honasene! And he just ran into my stomach. Like, bro, are you serious? And then I remember I literally stood up, and I'm like, you gotta be freaking joking. Like, I swore, and I was pissed off, and I remember remember I ended up grabbing him by like this black coat he was wearing. It had like a weird like cloud in the middle that was red. And I straight up just threw him on the ground and I just started punching him. And then all his friends were like, that's not fair. He's not fighting anime style. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And then his friends just started coming towards me, pulling me off. And then eventually a cop came around. And like knowing a cop was at the convention was like super weird. Like, I'm sorry, what's the worst that this anime kid can do? Like, seriously. And he pulls me off and then I get arrested and I had to go home. And my friend drove my car home afterwards because he had my keys anyway. And I remember when I got home, I told him, dude, that was the dumbest thing I ever did. But honestly, this does have a good ending though. I remember afterwards, the next day, I went on my Instagram and I realized that the hot like anime chick followed me and she gave me her real name and stuff. And she actually ended up wanting to go out, but clearly I just didn't want to. Because after that, I'm gonna be honest, I lost interest when she said, now me, I'm never usually overconfident about things, but sometimes you just gotta be. And if you guys are reading the title of this video, yes, this actually happened. But let me explain. Actually, before I do explain the story time, let me just say one thing. If you guys haven't clicked a like and subscribed to the channel already, you guys are seriously missing out. And on top of that, if you guys haven't already, did I mention that I am currently live on Twitch streaming right now, live in front of everyone? So if you guys do want to watch me live telling more of these amazing stories, then go ahead and click the link in the description down below. But other than that, let's get into this crazy story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So this story takes place back when I was in high school. Funny enough, this was my grade 10 year, and I remember I was still a small, scrawny kid. And by scrawny, I mean I didn't really hit the gym, and to be honest, nor did I ever care to. Now, soon in the next episode of Survival Guide, I'll be talking about what you should be getting into at school, and one of the things I wanted to get into was, well, sports. Sports is something iconic in high school that most people play. Like, comment down below if you guys played a sport in school. But for me, one of the main sports I wanted to get into was, well, rugby. Yeah, long story short, that never really ended up going through properly because I did injure my leg. But, you know, going on from that, though, I remember before I got into getting into rugby, I remember I wanted to get into a sport that was, well, at least really cool, or at least well known in a sense. So I remember I went up to my friends in my drama class, and there was one guy in my drama class who was taking a special sport, and this sport was boxing. Now me, I'm no boxer. I know boxing has become a big trend, especially, you know, YouTube boxing. Actually, I have a question for you guys. Comment down below who you think I should box in YouTube boxing. I don't know. I think I could actually, I might win something. Maybe. I'd probably not. But going on, I remember boxing became a really big deal, and a lot of my friends actually started getting into boxing. Me, on the other hand, well, I mean, I could give a good punch, but I never got really into it. So I remember as me and all my friends were talking about taking boxing classes and actually signing up, I remember there was a girl who walked into our group midway through a conversation and she started talking to us. Funny enough, this girl was a boxer, and I believed that she was a good boxer because, well, her arms were really muscular and, well, they were almost thicker than mine. Okay, like that says something there. Going on though, I remember this girl was explaining to our whole friend group how boxing is not an easy sport, how you have to be able to take a hit and basically one way or another be ready to be attacked. Now me, I've been in many fights. Like, if you guys don't know, I've had my first fight posted on here, which you guys loved and supported and gave up to 2 million views on, and another story where I fought an anime kid at an anime convention. Yeah, not going to one of those anytime soon. But this one specific time, I remember she was explaining how we need to take a hit and stuff, and me, I, well, felt like I could take a hit. I'm not gonna lie, me getting hit in any way, I got used to. I adapted to getting a fist to the face. Not that I'm saying like I practice getting hit in the face, but you know, I know what I'm doing. I know that feeling. I know that sense. So I remember that day after school, me and all my friends, and even this girl decided to come with us and show us her boxing gym. And my thought was, when we first went there, was like, oh, it's gonna be like filled with a bunch of girls, and you know, she's gonna show us around. When we got there were more guys than girls, and all of them were punching bags like no tomorrow. I swear, I think you might have like need an anger issue to actually be a good boxer, because holy cow, these guys looked angry all the time. But I remember me, I had a lot of things to take off my chest anyway. So I remember I went up to the front counter and started signing up. But as I went to the front counter, I saw this one girl, and this girl looked phenomenal. And she wasn't a boxer. She only worked there because her dad was always going to that gym. So I remember me, as I was signing up, I started talking to her and stuff, and she told me this really funny joke saying, oh, you actually like gonna box? Like, oh my goodness, like I don't even think you can handle it. Are you sure? Whatever that meant. I remember I told her I've been in a couple of fights at school and stuff, and she just kind of laughed and said, so you're fighting like people that don't know how to fight? Yeah, I mean, she wasn't wrong. I was fighting people that really did not know what they were doing. And sorry to all you gang kids out there, but you guys aren't fighters. You guys are just kids. And me being a kid at that time, actually being hurt by what she said, well, I decided to actually say, screw it, and signed up. I signed up, and I remember she was kind of like giving me a tour around the gym because she wanted to show me herself. And as she was showing me around, she ended up showing me one person in the gym that was massive. Like if I could explain how big this guy was, like picture like 5 pounds of steak put into one arm. Like, it's actually crazy how big his arms were. So I remember I was looking at him, I'm like, oh, like, you know, he's not that big. Me trying to sound like, you know, somewhat decent of myself. And she started talking about how he's been training for years, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, he always needs a sparring opponent. Me, I don't know anything about sparring. I mean, I've seen it here and there on the internet and stuff, but I didn't know what I was doing. But me, just to impress her, I remember I was like, oh, you know, I could definitely be a sparring opponent. Like, I could spar. Like, you know, the hardest to spar. Isn't it like the same name as that Pokemon Sparrow? Yeah, I could do it. She looks at me and starts laughing. And she's like, you don't understand. Like, all his sparring opponents, like, literally got hurt. Like, they cannot handle how hard he hits. And then me, I look at her and I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, I could take a punch or two. You know, I'm pretty good at what I was doing. After that, the girl looks over at her person that she was seeing. They weren't dating once again, but, you know, looks over at that person and says, hey, like, get over here. As he walks over, all I hear is, boom, boom. And this big dude looks over at me. He's like, hey, what's going on? As he puts his arm around the girl. And me, I said, oh, like, you know, I'm very experienced in like taking pain and stuff. I have a really high pain tolerance. So, you know, me and you know, we can spar if you want, bro. And then this girl is all like, oh, by the way, it's his first day here, so be easy on him. The guy looks over at me and he looks over at his girl and he's like, what? I'm so confused. One thing I can definitely say is that he had more bronze over brains. Does that make sense? Yeah, he was more broad and strong than actually had brain cells. But I mean, fair enough. Guy can hit. Anyways, afterwards, this guy goes back to training, and then me and this girl, we start walking around the gym more and more. And I remember I told her, okay, you know what? I'm gonna start training. And me, I decided to train somewhat near the front counter so she can see my skills. Yeah, I wasn't showing much, but let's just say I was punching the bag pretty good. Okay, like I kind of got the gist down. And now this is where things actually get worse. So the next day, I remember I went to school, and when I went to school, I went back to hanging out with my friend group. We were all talking about what we did in the boxing gym, you know, what was going on. And then the girl that originally told us about the boxing gym came back up to us. She came up to us and said, hey, like, Bubba, like that girl, like you were talking to yesterday that showed you around, she actually thinks you're somewhat cute. When she told me that, I got a confidence boost. I'm not gonna lie, I had major confidence boosts, and all the boys in the group were like, oh, he likes you, she likes you. And me, I was like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. But before we could fully celebrate, I remember the girl was like, yeah, but just remember, like, she does have like a person she's talking to, so like chill out, okay? I remember I looked over at her, I'm like, I could take him. Yeah, okay, this is where things really go south. I remember when I said that, oh my goodness, it was the worst thing possible to say, and it was something I should not have said in the moment, because let's just say girls talk. And when one girl says something, well, it's gonna spread out throughout the whole girl group like it's a virus. So I remember when I went back to the gym that day for my second day, the guy walks up to me. The big alpha, scary, Andrew Tate looking man came up to me and said, yo, bro, I heard you said you could take me, man. You want to go for a fight or something, bro? I remember I looked at him like, you know, I don't think we're in the same weight class and stuff, bro. I don't think it's possible. He looks at me again. He's like, bro, who cares about weight class, bro? You say you could take me either way, man. Who do you think you are, bro? Talking all like, you know, high and mighty about himself, even though he was pretty big. I won't lie, I was probably half steroids. I can't even lie to you, bro. Like, if it doesn't look natural, it's probably not natural. But going on, I remember I told him, I'm like, dude, like, this is my second day. Let me keep training, bro. You know, trying to act like, you know, I'm on his level of things. And then he told me, nah, put this on. Passed me gloves, and he's like, let's go hit the ring. Now, this was like a boxing fight between KSI and Logan Paul. But imagine Logan Paul being like 10 times bigger than he actually is. Yeah, it was one of those. I'm not saying I'm KSI nor as jacked as KSI, but it was one of those scenarios, okay? And I remember we both got into the ring, and as we were in the ring, I remember I was looking at him, and then I remembered one thing. And the one thing I remembered was David and Goliath. If you guys don't know what that is, it's basically a story in the Bible. I'm not here to preach to you guys. I'm basically here to tell you that I just remember that story because I used to go to church. Funny enough, you know what? It's kind of weird because I'm a guy who always says Devil's Tango, but I'm mentioning about church. But let's say I remembered the story David and Goliath. And me, I remember when the bell rang to start the fight, I instantly started, well, running around. I ran around the ring like an absolute horse. And I remember I was kind of like confusing him in a way. And then every time he would throw a punch, well, he would hit me, but I would like kind of like take it as much as I can. Let's just say that day I kind of discovered I did somewhat have a pain tolerance. And then I remember I decided to do this maneuver where boxers would punch towards the left and kind of fake it out and then punch the right. Yeah, it didn't work out. I remember he instantly recognized that I wasn't gonna actually punch him with my left arm and go for the right afterwards. And then he instantly just aimed for my head and knocked me out. Yep, I literally got punched and my face blacked out. Kind of sucked. It was absolutely terrible. And I remember I was just laying there in the ring. I don't remember really what happened next. All I remember is I woke up in the little nurse office they have, and basically the girl that was over me was the chick that was seeing the guy in the first place. And she says, honestly, like, I get you were trying to impress me in there, but you didn't really do much. But I'll tell you this much, you have balls to actually face him. And it walks away with the guy. Yeah, all I'm saying this story is don't get into something you're not good at, and don't talk too much, because let's just say it could lead to dangerous places. Okay, guys, when I say that women are our kryptonite, you know they are. When it comes to girls, we tend to get weak, and we realize that honestly there are some things that are just out of our control. And today's story is when basically one time in my class everyone felt kryptonite that day, and honestly as Superman I couldn't even save them. But before the story starts, make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do. And on top of that, I also go live on Kick streaming and telling these stories live. So if you guys want to watch me live tell these insane stories, go to kick.com/Bubba. Other than that, let's get straight into this insane story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So today's story takes place back when I was actually in high school. This was my grade 9 year, and I remember in grade 9, I wasn't that much of a ladies' man, but at the same time, I knew my way around, you know, spitting the riz, if you know what I mean. But I remember one time, there was a girl in our school that was really, well, how do I put this? Flirtatious. Meaning that every time a guy would talk to her, they would think they have actual shot with her. Sadly, yes, I was one of those men, but that's a story for another time. Going on though, this girl one time, I'm not gonna lie, she ended up doing something that was really, I think, illegal in some places, but at the same time, I'm not really sure. To be fair, she was from Germany, so I don't know how to do things down there, but I remember one time when we were in class, we ended up getting a school project. Now, this project was for us to learn how to basically understand the lifestyle of the olden times. And by olden times, I mean like when things were really old style, you know, people rode horses, women wore corsets, and guys, well, honestly, I think a lot of us just died and just worked our lives away, but still, that was basically what we were learning. And I remember me and this girl, we ended up getting paired up in a group, and to be honest, the whole time when we worked together, I always thought she was flirting with me. But at the same time, every guy felt that way, so honestly, I kind of took it like a grain of salt every time she said something to me that was flirtatious. Going on though, I remember one time she ended up telling me, "Oh, Bubba, so like after school, like later today, do you want to like maybe like come over to my place and finish up the rest of the project? I got something really cool to show you." Sure, yeah, I'm down, is what I told her. So I remember me and her, after school that day, I ended up going to her house. When I ended up texting the boys group chat that I was going to her house, they all freaked out saying, "Bro, there's no way. No one's ever entered her house before." Which, I mean, fair enough, it makes sense. But knowing I was going to be one of the first guys to actually go into her house ever since she came to her school was pretty, well, I guess high and mighty. I did kind of grow an ego from it for a bit. But then I remember when I ended up entering inside her house and we ended up going upstairs to her room to do the school project, I remember she told me, "Okay, Bubba, how much are you into role play?" I remember when she told me that, I was already kind of bricked. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh, like, I'm pretty into it, I guess. Even though the only role play I'd actually do is Catwoman and Princess Leia. But other than that, I wouldn't really want the girl to dress into anything else. Until at that moment, I remember this girl said to me, "Okay, well, like, I'm gonna go quickly get changed. I have a really cool costume I want to show you." "Okay," is what I said, being really excited with my eggplant and my eyes, I guess. And I remember I went and sat on her bed, and I remember I ended up seeing her phone ended up vibrating a lot from a lot of guys Snapchatting her. I'm not surprised how many guys were trying to flirt with her, but honestly, it was kind of crazy to know that. And also, a lot of guys were also Snapchatting me from my school and asking, is it true that I'm really at her house? But I remember I ended up just sitting there, ignoring all of them, and I was just sitting and waiting, thinking, now is my moment. I can finally do the devil's tango with the girl that everyone wants to get with. And then something insane happens, where she ends up walking into the room with a really old school outfit, like really old. Like, I'm not joking, not even my grandma would wear this, and she's old. And she was wearing like this really interesting outfit that made no sense to me. But one thing I realized about her when I was looking at the outfit was that her body shape really turned different. Like, she had more of an hourglass body than I expected. So I remember I walked up to her and said, "How can you breathe in that thing? It looks super tight." And then that's when I realized that she was wearing a thing called a corset. Now, ladies, if you're watching this video, you guys know what a corset is. It's something that really tightens your body to the point where I don't even know how you breathe. But I remember I was looking at this outfit and I saw that, you know, the corset really made one thing pop, and that was her cherries. Her cherries were popping like crazy, to the point where, I'm not gonna lie to you, she ended up saying, "Oh, like, honestly, like, it's really tight, but I think it will do really good for our school project. I even got you an outfit." I remember she ended up handing me this like really old school style shirt that made me look like a pirate, to be honest, and these really weird pants. And I remember I ended up getting the clothing from her and I was just holding it in my hand. She ended up telling me, "Well, are you gonna like put it on?" I ended up looking at her and saying, yeah, sure." And at that moment, I remember I ended up putting it on right in front of her, because for some reason, she literally said, in the middle of me going to the bathroom to change, she said, "Oh, you could just do it here. Like, I'm not stupid." Oh, okay. So I got changed in front of her. She saw how I basically got changed, and then she ended up telling me, "Oh my goodness, like, you look so perfect. Like, look at you." As she came up really close to me, to the point where I thought she was gonna kiss me, but didn't. And at that point, I knew that our project was gonna be embarrassing, but that wasn't even the most embarrassing part yet. What ends up happening next was honestly really just super bad. Because I remember the next day when I ended up going to school, I ended up basically telling my friends about how we literally didn't do the devil's tango. And all all we did was basically do our project. And also I did tell them about the weird outfits. I ended up saying that she was wearing a corset to some of the guys in the group, and they all said to me, bro, no way, she's actually wearing a corset? Dude, that's fire. You know how nice those things are on girls? Yeah, now I do, is what I ended up telling him. And honestly, he was super excited for that class. I remember when lunchtime came around and the next class was social studies, everyone in the school was asking me, how did this corset look on this girl? Because for some reason, a lot of guys are into corsets for some reason on women. I ended up telling them all like, yo, just chillax. Like, it's not like that. Don't worry. It's just going to be a simple outfit and you're only going to see her wear it once. And then came the presentation. I remember me and her, we entered the classroom when the bell rang after lunch. And when we went there, we sat down and we did something insane. Where basically when we all sat down, I remember our teacher was like, okay, class, whose presentation do you want to see first? And instantly, right at that moment, everyone in the class rose their hand and said, oh, like, I want to like see Bubba's presentation. Great. Thanks. At that moment, I did not want to do the presentation. I was already embarrassed enough, but I remember basically I ended up standing up and I basically went in front of the classroom. But before I did, I said, okay, we're gonna need like a couple minutes though, because I just need to quickly go change. And I remember everyone was like, yeah, you too, girl. As you know, the girl that basically was my partner in the project ended up standing up and going straight to the bathroom to get ready. I remember me and her, we went to the different bathrooms, we got changed, then we came out, and honestly, I looked so stupid. Knowing I wore that in school was embarrassing. But I remember me and her, we ended up going inside the socials classroom, and at that moment, every guy's eyes were just opened wide. Everyone was staring at her, and to the point where I wasn't even embarrassed anymore because no one was looking at me but the teacher. And I don't care about my teacher's opinion. Anyways, I remember me and her, we were giving the presentation, but to be honest, no one was focusing on the presentation. Everyone was just staring at her cherries that were literally about to pop. And I remember I was like, okay, let's just get this thing over with. And as I was giving the presentation, I remember I only did eye contact with my teacher that was sitting in the back of the classroom. From there, I remember I ended up saying to everyone, okay, and you can take the rest of the presentation, is what I said to my, partner. She ended up basically saying some words and stuff, and I'm not gonna lie, even I got distracted by looking at her cherries too. Like I said, cherries are also my kryptonite. And then I want to say this is the part where things got crazy, because I remember out of nowhere, she ended up dropping this pen that she was kind of just using to fidget with, and also kind of like to point out the screen for when she was presenting. And I remember she ended up dropping it, and when she dropped it, she bent over to go get it. And when she bent over, this was the most funniest thing, but at the same time, craziest thing that ever happened, where a cherry ended up popping out of her corset, and it was just sticking out like udders on a cow. It was so unexpected and so random to the point where I remember seeing that, and at that moment I ended up looking around the classroom as it was popped out, and every guy was bricked. And I remember at that point I didn't know what to do. My teacher was like, okay, and as she was panicking and stuttering, I remember every guy was just like eyes wide open. Even one guy tried to pull out his phone and take a photo. At that point, I didn't know what to do. So me being the nice guy, I remember I actually ended up standing in front of her, and I ended up actually taking off my shirt in front of the class. Yeah, I know, super embarrassing, but yes, I basically took off my shirt and ended up covering her with the shirt that she gave me in the first place. She was super thankful, and then she ended up running out of the classroom to go back to her normal clothing. At that moment, every guy was super happy, but every guy was also mad at me because they were all asking me after class saying, bro, why'd you do that? Like, seriously, bro, like, you're trying to ruin it for everyone? But also, my teacher did give me an A for being such a nice guy. And yeah, overall, what I learned that day was never wear a corset. And also that, yeah, maybe don't wear embarrassing outfits during a school presentation as well. Okay, so this story does get intense, and believe me, I am really scared to tell the story because I feel like YouTube's gonna hate me for this. But honestly, YouTube, this is a good story, and I'll try to censor it as much as possible. But today's story does get really insane, so make sure you guys do subscribe and also leave a like as well. Trust me, it helps a lot with this channel. And also join the Discord server down below. If you guys join the Discord server, you guys have the opportunity to tell your guys' crazy stories to me. And also follow me on Instagram, because I'm literally the hottest guy on the planet that will literally do the devil's tango with every single one of your family members, unless they're a guy. But anyways, guys, let's get straight into this crazy story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So like I said earlier, this is an intense story, and this all happens in my grade 11 year. So grade 11 for most high schoolers is kind of like the year where You guys just want to get your courses done, but at the same time, it's a pain in the butt because courses are annoying as hell. And let's be real here, none of us like school. It's just common sense. I'm sorry, if you say you like school, you might have like some sort of disability that I don't know about, but I don't think anyone likes school. Like, think about it. You're spending 12 years of your life having someone yell at you in front of a classroom and basically telling you what you're supposed to know at a young age going up to until you're an adult. It's ultimately silly, but going on. So back when I was in grade 11, I remember I had this class called language arts. Now, language arts is called LA for short. I don't know why it has nothing to do with Los Angeles, but basically language arts is where we learn, well, funny enough, we don't learn about anything about language or arts. We just kind of have fun and talk about life in a way, or talk about life expeditions that we want to do. I don't know. It's silly. Can someone down in the comments describe it for me? But going on, I remember back when I was in high school, that classroom was always considered the social classroom. We'd always have fun talking to each other, hanging out with each other. And I remember one time out of nowhere, there was a girl who transferred to our school and she was a really odd woman. I say woman because she seems really much older than what she actually was for her age, which is funny I say now because let's be real here. We have 12 years old girls that look like they're 20. But going on, I remember I was looking around and I saw her walk into the classroom and she's like, "Hi, my name is Jennifer and I'm from France." I guess she was from France, knowing that she just said that, but I basically was kind of weirded out. And apparently she like basically talked about herself in front of the classroom because our teacher wanted us to get to know her more. And let's just say she was a very interesting person, because I remember during the presentation when she was talking about, you know, what she did back at home, she basically said something like this: "What many of you guys don't know is that I'm in the fashion industry and like I basically was doing adult filming." What? Adult filming? What? And then she said something about her parents, like, you know, not wanting her to do that and giving her a better life, so she ended up coming to Canada. I don't know. It was weird, okay? I don't really want to get into her life story because this is about my story with her, but going on, I remember she ended up going to the back of the classroom and sitting in one of the back seats in the classroom, and honestly, no one cares for those kids back there. And I remember over time, she slowly moved her seat up in the classroom further and further to the point where everyone started to really like her in a way. I don't know why. First, all the guys started to really like her, and then all the girls were kind of getting to like her, but then disgusted by her over the weeks. Until one time, I remember a teacher came up to the front of the classroom saying, "All right, guys, so today we're going to be doing a presentation on what you guys want to be in the future." I remember when she said that, I was basically thinking about what I want to do for my project, but then I ended up seeing everyone look at this girl that was a foreign exchange student, basically all of them staring at her going, "Are you going to do what I think you're going to do? Oh my G, is she going to do it? Oh my God, no way." Like they were all like really interested in what her project was about, when in reality, it was supposed to be about all of us. I was confused. So I remember I walked up to her. I'm like, "Hey, so like, what are you doing for your project?" You know, trying to be nice to her because, you know, me and her barely talked. And she said, "Oh, like, you know, I'm gonna do what I'm best at in a way." Sure. So what are you best at is what I said to her. And she said, "Oh, like, you know," as she starts shaking her cherries back and forth. I don't know. It was something off straight a movie. I'm gonna be honest from what I just saw there, but it was really weird. So I remember I just walked away and said, "All right." And I went back to my desk and started writing down how I want to be a YouTuber in the future. It's crazy how I wanted to be a YouTuber ever since I was born. And now that I'm actually one, it's pretty awesome. By the way, did I mention subscribe to the channel? Please do it. It's seriously worth it. Anyways, 3 days go by and it was the weekend. I remember all of us still had time to work on our projects, but it was due Monday morning. And basically, I remember I had time to finish my project, so I ended up hopping on Xbox with the boys to play some Black Ops 2. When I was talking to them, I remember one of them told me, "Yo, bro, did you see what that girl's doing for her project, dude? It's actually insane. She gave me a run through and it was the hottest thing ever." Hottest thing ever is what I asked him. Like, what do you mean hottest thing ever? And he told me, "Bro, trust me, tomorrow, try not to get bricked up. You know what I'm saying, bro?" What is what I said? I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, what does that mean? I was so confused. And at the same time, I really wanted to know what was going on, but at the same time, I didn't. But then afterwards, I remember I really wanted to know, and me being curious about something really messes me up in a way. Like, do you guys ever get curious about something and just need to know what it is, and you'll do basically anything to figure it out other than killing someone? Yeah, that was me. So I remember I ended up going on Instagram and basically finding her Instagram page, since all her classmates were already following her for some reason. And when I went through her Instagram page, I realized that she was, yeah, literally in the adult film industry. She was literally on the Devil's Hub. It was interesting. I ended up going on, you know, the Devil's Hub because she had it linked in her bio, and basically she was, yeah, there was everything. Okay, guys, there was literally everything. Like, there was more things than I realized once. And I remember I was freaking out, panicking, but at the same time kind of bricked. But I was panicking, and knowing this was in my classroom was insane. Obviously, I didn't do anything because, well, you know, touche, like, you know, two can play that game. Not saying I'm going to be in the adults industry, but, you know, whatever. Anyways, going on, I kind of just decided to forget about it and move on from it. But then I realized that I added her on Snapchat. Yes, I decided to add her on Snapchat because she was actually hot. Okay, I was in grade 11, and you guys already know I'm like the ultimate F-boy in my high school. Like, I had to know what was going on. plan. So I ended up adding her. And when I added her, I remember I snapped her saying, yo, like, can I get a peek of that project? She ends up snapping me back saying, oh, you'll see it tomorrow. Don't worry, baba. And I'm like, all right, cool, I guess, because it was already Sunday. Anyways, the next day comes on, and I remember I end up going to school actually excited for the first time. I know, kind of crazy. And when I did, I remember we all basically went straight to the classroom, and when we got to the classroom, we all sat down excited for this presentation. I remember a teacher went in front of the classroom saying, all right, guys, so who's going to go first for what they want to be in the future presentation? And instantly, none of us put our hand up. None of us. Like, it was like a dead, quiet zone. Like, no one was saying a word. So then out of nowhere, I remember there was a kid in the back of the classroom saying, the new girl will go first. Let her do it. She's hot. And everyone started laughing. And then the teacher goes, all right, well, would you like to go first? Yeah, sure. Why not? As she gets up and basically gets her set up ready for the presentation, all of us were excited. And I was actually pretty excited as well. We all didn't know what was going to happen. And then eventually when she started her presentation, she started talking about the Devil's Hub and was literally showing pictures. My teacher was trying to stop the presentation saying, I don't think this is appropriate. But then one of the girls was like, excuse me, this is literally like the human body. It's literally a part of a science. Like, show respect to other people's human bodies. Like, pride, let's go. I don't know. She was a part of the LGBTQ club, so I'm not gonna say anything. And then I remember she's like, thank you. The girl that was showing the presentation about her being an adult filmmaker. And then after that, I remember there was a slide in the PowerPoint where it was literally just her cherries. Just out of nowhere, she literally just shows her cherries. And all the guys, I can 100% were bricked. I know two of them ended up going to the bathroom once they saw that. So I already knew what was going on down there, and I did not want to go to the bathroom. But I remember they were all basically bricked, and it was so funny because I remember I was looking at them like, holy cow, those are huge. Because she had huge cherries, okay, guys? She's like, it was ginormous. And basically, I remember one of the guys in the back of the classroom, again, the same guy that made the joke in the first part of the class, was like, those aren't yours. They're definitely fake. Prove it, wussy. Okay, is what she said afterwards. And she ended up literally flashing the whole classroom. She flashed everyone in the classroom with her cherries. Literally every single person in the classroom was flashed. It was crazy. All of us got to see those live in action in my grade 11 classroom language arts class. Insane. I know. I did not expect it. But then I remember my teacher, she ended up standing up saying, all right, that is the last straw. Go to the office right now. And basically she went to the office and she, I guess, got suspended for a couple days, which is crazy to me, but honestly, it blew our minds. Knowing that just happened in our classroom was, well, I'm not gonna lie, pretty wild. Anyways, I remember like the next day I ended up snapping her and me and her ended up meeting up and stuff. But you know what? That's all a story for another time. If you guys do want to know about that time, then I guess leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. And follow me on Instagram saying we want more. Because seriously, I read my Instagram comments, and also join the Discord server down below. That is when you guys get the latest updates early, like really early. Anyways, guys, like I always say, fall for more embarrassing stories. All right, peace out, guys. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie to you. I've had my fair share of babysitters. But one thing I will say is that this one specific babysitter, I think, was doing the most illegal thing that any babysitter could do. But before we get into the story, please make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe. And on top of that, I know many times I've said that I would have a girl sitting behind me for one of the story times, but sadly I can't find a girl that wants to be behind me during a story time, or just in general being on camera. Don't get me wrong, I have a ton of girls coming to my place all the time, but none of them are willing to just sit behind a camera and just sit there. I'm not joking. The conversations I've had was the most weirdest thing ever, but we'll find one eventually. But as we're finding one, if this video hits over 2,000 likes, I will shave my beard for the next video. That way there's actually something looking forward to. And on top of that, I'm not gonna lie to you, I love my beard and I don't want to lose it. But if we get 2,000 likes on this video, I will shave it. Other than that, let's just jump straight into this insane story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to a really intense story. So today's story takes place back when I was 10 years old. And when I was 10 years old, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't like other kids. Yes, I was, you know, goofing around and, you know, basically not having any responsibilities and just only caring about video games like most kids. But one thing I really did not care about was girls. And when I was 10 years old, for some reason, a lot of my friends were into girls, but I just wasn't. I didn't really care about girls at the time. I only cared about Pokemon, Call of Duty, you know, the more important things in life. But then I remember one time when I was in my school, I was sitting down in my classroom just playing with some blocks, I guess, or just writing something down. I'm not really sure. But I remember one time when I was sitting down in class in my elementary school, I was reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and my friend came up to me. Now, this friend that came up to me was actually 2 years older than me, but he was held back and ended up being in the same grade as me because, well, I guess he was just dumb. I don't know. I guess he's just stupid naturally. And he ended up coming up to me saying, are you playing the new game this weekend that's coming out? Yeah, duh, is what I told him. And afterwards, we ended up making a plan for him to actually come over and play video games with me. Now, this was nothing new. Him coming over and playing video games with me was actually something that was really cool. And also, since he was older, a lot of kids in my grade actually kind of thought he was was cool. I don't know why, because now I realized that he was really stupid, but I don't know. I was a kid. Everything seemed cool back then. Anyways, I remember we basically made a plan for the next day for him to come over and basically have a sleepover with me over the weekend. And his parents were cool with it. And I remember I ended up texting my parents on my iPod and they were also cool with it. Yes, I had an iPod when I was in elementary school, okay? I wasn't rich. It's just my parents wanted me to have some form of communication with them. And also it was an iPod, not a phone, okay? We're not going to talk about it, but going on with the story. I remember that same day on the way home when my dad picked me up from school, I ended up telling him about the plan of my friend coming over. He was totally cool with it and he did not mind it, but then he also mentioned to me that, oh, Bubba, just a reminder, I'm going to be going to America this weekend and I'm going to be going for a work trip, so I won't be here. And so will your mother will also be coming with me. Wait, if you or mom are not home, then who's going to take care of me? Oh, don't worry, we'll have a babysitter for you. Now, when he said babysitter, I won't lie to you. Like in the beginning of this video, I've had my fair share of babysitters. And even though people think babysitters are fun, let's just say all the babysitters that I've had different sorts of fun. And I'm talking about the Devil's Tango. You know, it wasn't no Nanny McPhee or, you know, Mary Poppins fun like I wish it was. But I guess this was a different taste of things, I guess. But anyways, what ended up going on next was, well, let's just say very concerning. Because I remember when we got home, I was basically going up to my parents, basically complaining to them saying, why are we getting a babysitter? You know what? The friend that's coming over is older. He could take care of me. But my parents wouldn't budge. They were both very persistent and really wanted me to make sure that I had a babysitter. So me being upset, I ended up going up to my room, really upset and angry, and ended up going there and just sitting and playing Call of Duty. When I was sitting in my room playing Call of Duty with my headphones on, I remember I ended up hearing the doorbell ring, and instead of going downstairs to see who it was, I ended up basically sitting like on the top of the staircase, just waiting to see who it was. And I remember when my mom opened the door, we ended up seeing the babysitter. Now this babysitter was actually like some basic 16-year-old girl. She was very nice and very simple. She had like, you know, brunette hair, I guess, or brown hair. I don't really remember, to be honest, because it was so long ago. But one thing I will say is that she was very young and still in high school. And I remember me, when I looked at her, the first thing I thought was, why in the world is this woman taking care of me? Now you guys are probably wondering like, oh, like weren't you attracted to her and stuff? And no, I wasn't. To be honest, I wasn't in the mood or never have been actually, you know, bricked up before back then. Because if you guys did not know, the first time I actually got bricked up in my entire life was, well, in my middle school dance. And me, I was still in elementary school at this time. But going on with the story, I remember basically from there, my parents ended up interviewing her and stuff, and she got hired on the spot. And the reason for that is because my parents were literally leaving the next day, so it makes sense. I'm not gonna lie. And then one thing led to another. She ended up coming up to my room, introducing herself to me, and I just ended up basically like saying, hey, like what's going on? Me acting like the cool kid I was, and kept playing Call of Duty. Not even looking at her, nothing, because I could care less. And let's just say what ended up happening the next day was extremely illegal. Because I remember the next day, I ended up going to school, and right after school, me and my buddy ended up coming over straight back to my place for, you know, all the fun we were gonna have this weekend. And when I entered my house, I remember my buddy looks at me saying, yo, bro, where are your parents? Oh, my parents aren't here. A babysitter's gonna be here any minute now. Wait, you have a babysitter? Bro, she's gonna ruin all the fun. I know, man. That's what I said, but don't worry about it. Like, I don't think she'll be in the way. Little did I know, she was gonna be in the way. Because I remember 5 minutes after we got home, the babysitter ended up ringing the doorbell and I answered it. When I answered it, she ended up saying hello to me and I didn't care. I just straight up ignored her and ended up going up to my room with my friend and ended up playing video games. But as I was upstairs playing with my friend, I remember my friend looked at me saying, yo, bro, where's the babysitter? Is she here? Yeah, she's just downstairs making me a sandwich or something. I don't know, doing some woman stuff, I guess, in the kitchen. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty based as a kid. I'm not gonna cap with you. But going on, I remember my friend ended up saying, oh, wait, a sandwich? Let's go downstairs. I want a sandwich. I was joking about the sandwich, but clearly he didn't get that joke. And we ended up basically going downstairs to see the babysitter. When we went downstairs, I remember we saw the babysitter in the kitchen just sitting on the counter on her phone. And when we went down the stairs, I remember I ended up basically walking down there saying, yo, what's going on? To the babysitter. And my friend ended up looking at her with his jaw dropped and basically, I don't know, I guess amazed. I'm not gonna lie, the last time I had his facial expression of going, I was looking at, you know, Grand Theft Auto's club that's in the game. Can I even say the strip word? I don't know. Going on, though, I remember basically, he was basically aroused and amazed by this babysitter. And me, I could care less. And I remember one thing led to another. I basically told her to get up and make me a sandwich, and she ended up making me a sandwich. And as we were just sitting down eating our sandwiches, I remember my friend that was 2 years older than me told me, yo, bro, be nice to the babysitter, man. Like, she's kind of hot. What do you mean she's hot? She's just a girl, bro, is what I said afterwards. But then he ended up up saying, nah, dude, like, you got a hot babysitter, bro. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, damn. I ended up just basically ignoring him and really couldn't care less about what he said. And I ended up basically taking my sandwich upstairs and went back to playing Call of Duty. As for my buddy, well, he didn't come up with me. He ended up actually staying downstairs and talking to the babysitter the whole time. Now, I'm not gonna lie. After 5 minutes, I could care less about my friend. But after 10 minutes, I was actually kind of concerned on why wasn't he coming upstairs? Wasn't he already bored about the girl? Like, wasn't she boring already? She must have been boring him or maybe torturing him or something. At least that's what I thought when I was a kid. I remember I ended up going downstairs and going to the kitchen. And when I went to the kitchen, instead of walking in, I decided to basically hide behind the counter and basically started listening into their conversation. When I was listening, I remember my friend was talking about something with like cherries and stuff, and basically how he's never seen a pair of cherries. And me, in my mind, I was thinking, why would he want to see that? Like, my mom has a pair and it's not even that good. That's really weird. I don't know why I just said that, but mom, if you're watching this video, I apologize. I love you. You have beautiful... Never mind. Okay. Oh my god, it's so awkward. Okay, going on though. I remember from there, I ended up basically sitting there really weirded out and my face was just disgusted. I didn't know what to think or what to say. But then afterwards, I remember the girl that was my babysitter ended up saying, oh, like, would you like to see? Hell yeah, I would, is what my friend said. And from there, I remember I ended up looking up over the counter to see what was going on. And this girl ended up basically taking off her shirt and her, you know, cover up underwear thingy, bra, I guess we could say. And yeah, basically my friend ended up looking at a pair of cherry. That was really weird. And also, I mean, I also got to see it, not gonna lie, but it was I was really uncomfortable because I don't think I was supposed to see it, even though I was seeing it. But then he was supposed to see it, but he was 12 and she was 16. You know, it was a whole sorts of illegal. I remember from there though, I ended up standing up saying, what are you doing? And yeah, my friend ended up running up to me saying, bro, like, what are you doing? She's a hot babysitter showing her cherries, bro. Why are you complaining? I don't care about the cherries, but my parents are gonna care. And then that's when the babysitter ended up walking up to us saying, wait, what do you mean your parents are gonna care? Your parents won't find out. Just don't tell them. I'm not gonna tell them, but that will. And that's when I pointed at the security camera that was placed in my house to make sure I wasn't causing any havoc to the babysitter. Let's just say my parents ended up coming home a day early from the trip to America that time because I'm in Canada. And yeah, my babysitter got fired and also a really harsh talking to. But hey, I mean, I guess I saw cherries that time, so I wasn't really complaining now, was I? Anyways, guys, that is basically it for today's story. Leave a like, subscribe, and like I always say, follow for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys. I remember when I got out of the shower and I went to my bedroom to change. Out of nowhere, my babysitter ends up walking in, saw my eggplant, and grabbed it just to make me eat dinner. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another really embarrassing story. So this story all takes place back when I was in high school, and this was my grade 9 year. Now, in grade 9, I managed to get a lot of different types of babysitters because my parents would always go out on vacation and do many different things since I was of age to, well, kind of, I guess, take care of myself, but not fully because I would always end up getting a babysitter. But my parents never mind getting a babysitter for me, and I remember one day in my grade 9 year when I was heading home from school, I remember I was super excited to be home because I remember there was a new game coming out that year and I just wanted to play it all day and all night and not do anything else other than play video games. And I remember once I walked through my house doors, out of nowhere, I ended up seeing my parents with luggage near the entrance, and one of them looked at me saying, oh, Bubba, we're going to be leaving for a couple days. You will be home, but there's a babysitter coming in like half an hour, okay? I'll see you in 3 days. And then out of nowhere, both my parents ended up leaving. Now, this moment, honestly, I wasn't really fazed by it, nor did I say anything back because I wasn't surprised that they were doing this. And to be honest, I had other plans. Like I said earlier, I was just planning to go upstairs and play video games and not do anything else. So I remember that exact moment. I went upstairs, I ended up just, you know, unpacking my things from school and instantly sat on my bed and just started gaming. Out of nowhere, like I want to say 20 minutes later, I ended up hearing the door knock. And at that moment, I instantly just went down the stairs, opened the door for the babysitter, and I didn't even say hello to her. I literally just opened the door and went right back upstairs. I remember this babysitter, she looks at me really like weirdly and she's like, you know you're supposed to say hi when you answer the door? Sorry, I got other plans, I gotta go, is what I told her. And I went upstairs and I just closed my room door and I just started playing. It's kind of crazy now that I think about it because I basically let a total stranger into my house without any supervision, but at the same time, her job was to supervise me, not me supervising her. So in reality, I just wasn't gonna do her job. Going on from there, I remember I was sitting down, I started playing my game, and I'm not gonna lie, lie to you. I was just going through every mission I can possible, searching up YouTube videos on how to beat certain levels and what's the best way to do it. But as I was in there for, I want to say 4 hours, out of nowhere, I remember the babysitter ends up walking into my room and she looks at me and says, oh, so I haven't seen you like all day. Are you okay? Like, do you need anything? No, I'm just playing this video game. Why, do you need something? No, I'm asking you if you need anything because you haven't said anything, nor, you know, have you asked for anything. Like, are you sure you're okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just playing this new game that came out. I remember that moment she came and sat down beside me and she started like asking me questions about this game and stuff. And since I did some research on it before I started playing it, obviously I knew all the answers that she wanted. But one thing I will say is that she was probably asking me all these questions because she wanted to get to know me. But it's hard to get to know someone when you're only talking about one certain subject. Like, it's like walking up to a girl and just talking about dogs. In reality, you're learning more about dogs than the actual person. But going on with the story, I remember one thing led to another. She ends up looking at me and says, okay, well, I'm gonna go make dinner. Are you hungry at all? Yeah, you can make me a grilled cheese sandwich. That'll be awesome. I'm just gonna continue staying here and playing the game. So just bring it upstairs, would you? Are you allowed to eat in your room? Yeah, is what I told her. When in reality, I wasn't actually allowed to eat in my room, but what? She was just my babysitter. Obviously, she wouldn't know that. So I remember this babysitter goes downstairs, gets food ready, and then comes back upstairs and gives me my food and just basically leaves me alone. I remember hours went by, and I want to say like more than 5 to 6 hours. And it was definitely like getting super late because I remember when I looked outside, it was like super dark out. When I checked my phone for the time, I saw it was like basically like almost 3 in the morning. And when I saw it was 3 in the morning, I was like, whoa, like it's getting really late. But at the same time, I didn't really know if I wanted to get off. So I remember I ended up going downstairs real quick to go get a glass of water because, well, I always like to get a glass of water before I go to bed. And when I got my glass of water, I remember I went straight upstairs and I basically started playing the game a bit longer until I ended up passing out. Comment down below if you guys have ever passed out during a video game and what video game it was, because I'm not gonna lie to you, passing out during a video game really shows your passion for the game that you were playing. I remember the next day I ended up waking up out of nowhere, and right as I opened my eyes, I am not joking, I looked at my TV that was on my wall and I saw that I was still in the middle of a video game. So I ended up actually just picking up my controller again and continued the game. Literally, first thing I did was wake up and start playing video games. It's actually kind of insane. But this is where things get really crazy because I remember, I want to say like 20 minutes went by and out of nowhere, I ended up seeing the babysitter that was at the house end up walking into my room saying, oh, you're awake and you're back on playing the video game. Yeah, I just want to beat this mission. You do realize you've been playing this game all night, right? Yeah, what about it? Okay, well, I'll just leave you alone, I guess. Yeah, that'll be cool. Thanks. And this babysitter ended up leaving. Now, I will say this, I was being really rude to her, but at the same time, like I said earlier, ever since I got home, I had a plan to play this video game. So obviously, I'm going to play it. I remember 4 hours went by, and once again, I was still playing this game. I don't know how, but I just kept playing this game, and I even got to the point where I actually had a water bottle that I ended up, you know, pissing in because, well, I didn't want to go to the bathroom because I was in the middle of a cutscene. So obviously, sacrifices were made, people. But out of nowhere, I remember my babysitter ends up walking into my room, and she looks at me and says, okay, Baba, seriously, you've been playing this game for like over like 2 days now? I am not joking. You need to take care of yourself. Okay, well, I'll do it later. No, I think you're gonna do it right now. My opinion, go take a shower. I don't really want to. Let me just finish this mission real quick. I remember this babysitter got really fed up with me, and she got so upset to the point where she actually ended up walking up in front of my TV and she turned off my Xbox. She turned it off and said, go take a shower now. The game can wait. Oh, fine, whatever, is what I told her. And I instantly just got up, went straight to the bathroom, and I just took a shower. I remember when I got into the shower, I was so annoyed and super upset, so I ended up speed running the shower, and I am not joking. I was probably in the shower for like less than 5 minutes. And basically, right after my shower, I ended up getting out of the shower, putting on my towel, and walking straight back into my room. But when I got inside my room, I ended up seeing my babysitter sitting on my bed looking at me saying, Baba, there's no way you showered less than 5 minutes. There is no possible way you're actually clean. Well, I did, so what about it? Baba, no, seriously, go back into the shower and finish. Finish what? I'm not going to go take a shower. And I'm not joking. When I said that, I did not expect her to do anything because usually babysitters wouldn't do anything. But this babysitter was different because I remember this babysitter ends up walking up to me, takes off my towel, and grabs me by the eggplant and says, Baba, you're going back into the shower now. At that moment, I was looking down and I started getting bricked because she was obviously holding my eggplant, and she could definitely feel that I was getting bricked. And I remember this babysitter ends up looking down at her hand that was grabbing my eggplant, and she says, okay, you know what? This is getting weird. You think? is what I said afterwards. And then she ends up basically grabbing it tighter and walking me back to the bathroom just to go back into the shower. At that moment, I felt violated, but at the same time, I was actually kind of like, you know, bricked up because obviously that's kind of hot, not gonna lie. But I was super annoyed. And I'm not joking. I ended up taking a full-on 20-minute shower, got out of the shower, and went back into my room and started playing the game. But as I was playing the game, I remember the babysitter ends up walking back into my room, like I want to say like an hour later. And I remember during a cutscene, this babysitter was just standing there. And she said, Baba, I just want to say like, I'm sorry that happened. I was just really fed up and like you were starting to smell. And I just wanted you... Are you even listening to me? Yeah, just give me a second. Let me finish this cutscene. When she saw I was not paying attention to her, she ended up finding out a way to get my attention, and that was by pulling her shirt up. And she pulled her shirt up, and I saw her cherries out, and she said, Baba, are we even now? Yeah, we're even, is what I said, staring at her cherries. And your parents are not gonna find out about this, right? Yeah, no, I'm not gonna say a word. Okay, sweet. She ended up pulling her shirt down, and she went back downstairs and just mind her own business. But at that moment on, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was actually kind of like amazed about what this babysitter did, because not only did she get me to take a shower during grind time, but she also got my attention from my cutscene that was very important into the story. I'm not joking. I ended up having to like reload a save file that I had just to rewatch the cutscene. But hey, what can I say? Cherries are my weakness. Okay, so there's a lot of things that babysitters do to take care of like, you know, the person they're watching. But I gotta say, what this one babysitter ended up doing was extremely illegal. And it got to the point where it actually got really naughty. But obviously, before we get into this story, make sure you guys press that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do this, and it means I can tell more crazy stories like this one on here. So just press the subscribe button if you want more story time. But other than that, let's just jump straight into today's embarrassing story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to a really embarrassing video. So today's story all starts off back when I was actually in grade 8. Yeah, it was my year of ending middle school, and I was just getting out of middle school. But obviously, one time when I ended up coming home, I ended up seeing that my parents were actually packing the car up for a trip where they were going to head to the US of A. If you guys don't know, I have family that live down in the United States, and I remember basically I was never able to go because I always ended up having schoolwork to do, or I either had sports, or let's just say I would always have a reason not to go. And as much as I wanted to go to the States, my parents wouldn't let me because, well, they wanted me to be a good student. And obviously, me being a good student wasn't obviously a thing, so one thing that they would always do is hire a babysitter. So I remember as my parents were packing the car, my mom ended up walking up to me saying, "We got you a babysitter. She's gonna be here any minute. She's gonna be here for only 2 days. So don't worry, you'll be a-okay." Wait, mom, are you serious? A babysitter? Come on. I don't need a babysitter. I'm in grade 8. I'm almost done middle school. I'm gonna be a high schooler. Baba, that's no excuse. You need a babysitter. Whatever, mom. And at that point, I ended up going upstairs to my room, doing my homework, and then playing some Call of Duty. I remember 10 minutes went by, and then I ended up hearing a knock on the door. And when I heard the knock on the door, I ended up answering it, and I saw it was a babysitter. But this babysitter wasn't any ordinary babysitter, because this babysitter ended up coming in, and she was some high schooler that was like, I want to say like 17 turning 18, and she ended up, funny enough, having a briefcase with her that looked like there was a lot of valuable stuff in it. Like, I'm not joking, she was holding like one of those silver briefcases that people would usually put like tons of money in. I remember I looked at her and I ended up telling her, I have a question. Is that all your stuff that you brought to my house for the night? Oh yeah, don't worry, I'm gonna make sure I take extra good care of you. I ended up looking at her kind of in fear, but at the same time, I was in grade 8 and I was just hoping that this babysitter would do her thing and I would do my thing. So I ended up just going upstairs and playing video games. Now, this is where the story gets a little weird, because I remember as I was in my room playing video games, I remember I ended up coming downstairs for a quick bite to eat because I ended up getting hungry after playing so much Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and I ended up seeing my babysitter on a ladder basically putting something in the kitchen. Now, she wasn't putting plates away, she wasn't cleaning anything, she was just trying to set something up on top of the kitchen counter, and I ended up looking at her saying, "What are you doing?" She instantly turns around and says, "Oh, nothing, I'm just making sure everything's like, you know, ship shape in here. What do you need?" "Oh, I'm just hungry." "Oh, then let me feed you, little boy." Yeah, she called me little boy. I can't believe it either. But anyways, after she ended up feeding me, I remember she ended up asking me which one was my room. I ended up telling her, "Oh, my room's like upstairs to the left," and she instantly decided to go upstairs right away, right as I said that. I didn't know what she was doing in my room, but honestly, I remember when she went upstairs so quickly though, I was a little worried because I was wondering why in this world is this babysitter going in my room. So I ended up basically going upstairs literally right after I finished eating, and I saw that she was putting something in my room. Now, I didn't know what she was putting, and every time I would ask her, she instantly would just turn around and say, nothing, I was just checking your room. This is a really cool desk and gaming setup you have. Okay, I'm gonna go downstairs now. And she ended up going downstairs. I ended up following her downstairs, asking her a bunch of questions like, hey, is everything okay? Is there anything you need to talk about? Because she was acting really, really weird. And then that's when this babysitter ended up going into this briefcase and pulling out an iPad. And this iPad was no normal Apple iPad. Like, she was pulling out some weird, like, Sony professional iPad. And she ended up looking at me saying, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna make sure you're gonna be a-okay. I remember she ended up looking at me with her eyes wide open as if she was some crazy lady, and I was just kind of in fear. I ended up looking at her saying, okay, well, I'm just gonna be in my room. Oh, okay, that sounds fine to me. And she ended up going to the living room, sitting down, turning on my TV, and then she ended up basically just staring at her iPad as she was watching TV. I remember I was watching her for like a good 2 minutes as she was sitting on my couch using my TV, and she looks at the iPad saying, Bubba, I see you're still there. You can leave now. At that point, I ended up going upstairs and I ended up going to my room and basically just sitting on my bed thinking, what in the world was she doing? And at this moment, I honestly had this like gut feeling in my stomach that I was being watched. Now, obviously I was being watched because I had a babysitter, but I had like a more gut feeling like she was always watching. And this gave me a giant scare. I remember it got pretty late at night and she ended up feeding me and she was doing her normal babysitting duties. But then I remember as I was in my room laying down for bed, I remember she ended up coming into my room saying, Bubba, do you need to get tucked in or are you good? I'm in grade 8. I'm pretty sure I'm good, but thanks. Okay, well, I'm just gonna be downstairs. Tell me if you need anything. Okay. And right as I say that, she ended up going downstairs and basically ended up watching TV again. I ended up sitting in my room and for some reason I couldn't sleep. I just kept looking around my room and I felt like something was off. And usually at this time, since I was in grade 8 and I felt like something was off, I decided to do the one thing that was really normal between all teenagers, and that was beat my eggplant. So I remember I decided to whip out my eggplant. I ended up getting my lotion, you know, doing the whole tradition that most people have, or most guys I should say have. And right at that moment, as I was about to beat my eggplant, my babysitter walks into the room and says, Bubba, what are you doing? You should be asleep right now. I ended up looking at her and I'm like, and I ended up having my eggplant in my hand and she's just staring at me as I'm like holding it. And I'm like, can I get some privacy? Bubba, if you're gonna do that, at least let me help you out with that. I remember she ends up actually coming up to me and me and her, we actually ended up doing the Devil's Tango out of nowhere. It was the most craziest thing ever. And it was like she was preparing this whole night to do that singular thing. I remember after we did the Devil's Tango, I ended up asking her like, you know, how did she find out that like, you know, I was, you know, gonna beat my eggplant? And she told me that she put a camera in my room. And she told me the way she watches over people when she's babysitting is that she puts cameras everywhere. So apparently this whole time she put cameras in my room, in the bathroom, in the kitchen, and she always just knew where I was. I gotta say, even though I got to do the Devil's Tango, what this girl did was extremely illegal. But hey, at the same time, my parents only hired her once. Okay, so I've had a ton of weird babysitters, but a babysitter that wanted to be the baby, that's a little insane until I actually experienced it. But before we get into the story, make sure you guys press that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do this. And let's just jump straight into this embarrassing story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to a super embarrassing story. So today's story all takes place back in my middle school year, and I remember this was when I was in grade 7. Now, when I was in grade 7, I'm not gonna lie to you, I wasn't mature, nor was I able to take care of myself. To be honest, if I had to choose what to eat for dinner, it'd probably be mac and cheese with a jug of chocolate milk. Would that be healthy? No. But would I enjoy it? Yes. So anyways, going on with the story, I remember from there, one time when I was sitting in my room playing Call of Duty during winter break, which is funny enough because we're in winter break right now, I remember my mom ended up coming up to me saying, oh, Bubba, we're going to go to America to visit some family for winter break. I know you don't want to come because we bought you a new video game for Christmas. So we're going to let you basically stay here, but we're going to hire a babysitter. I remember I looked at my parents and this was nothing out of the regular. My parents would always go on trips to America to go see family that we have there. And me, I never really went because I obviously want to stay home playing video games and dream about being a famous YouTuber, which thanks to you guys pressing that subscribe button, you guys are able to do. Anyways, going on, I remember I ended up saying whatever, it's fine. And basically my parents went online to find a babysitter. For some reason, they always went online and found this like really weird babysitter site where they could basically find me babysitters. And I'm not gonna lie to you, every single one of them was probably super weird, except that really nice old lady that gave me cookies every time I wanted. She was cool, but this babysitter that ended up coming over was the most weirdest babysitter of all time. Because I remember the next day when my parents were packing their bags getting ready, I remember I heard my door knock. And when my door knocked, obviously I went downstairs and opened it to see who the babysitter was. And when I opened it, I realized that there was a woman that was probably around 16, 17, and she was wearing a onesie. Yeah, a onesie. And it wasn't no normal onesie. It was like one of those like bunny onesies that like chicks wear to like, you know, I guess look cute even though they're still ugly. And I remember I was so in shock when I saw this, to the point where I was like, hi, are you my babysitter? Yeah, I'm your babysitter. We're gonna have so much fun. Oh my goodness. Where are your parents? Oh, they're just getting their bags ready to go. Okay, well, let's just get straight into it. Oh my goodness. What do you want to do? Okay. You babysit and I'm just gonna go do stuff, I guess. At that moment, my mom came down, introduced herself, and basically showed her around the house while I went straight up to my room and started playing video games. And then afterwards, when my parents ended up leaving the driveway with the vehicle, my babysitter came up to my room and said, oh my goodness, Bubba, what are you doing? I'm playing video games. Why? What's up? Oh, well, like, I'm trying to figure out this TV, but I don't know how this works. Can you come show me? You don't know how to use a TV remote? No, I don't. My parents don't let me use TV. Why? Oh, because they said I get addicted to it really easily. At that moment, me knowing that, I thought, okay, maybe if I turned on the TV, this babysitter would leave me alone. So I went downstairs with her. I ended up turning on my TV, and basically I ended up getting ready to go back up to my room. But before I ended up going back upstairs to play video games, my babysitter ended up yelling at me saying, oh, where are you going? Going upstairs to my room. Oh, can you get me some milk? You want milk? Yeah, can you please get me some milk? I really want some milk. I like milk. The way she was talking was super weird, and I didn't know if she was like trying to talk in like a baby voice to like make me like, you know, feel not intimidated. But I am not joking. She was the most annoying thing on the planet. But anyways, I ended up getting her a glass of milk, and when I gave her the glass of milk, she ended up telling me that she preferred milk in a water bottle. So I ended up getting a water bottle, emptying the water, pouring the milk in it, and then basically handing it to her. When I gave it to her, she was almost drinking it as if it was a baby bottle, and it was the most weirdest thing ever. But anyway, she ended up watching the TV, watching some cartoon for herself, while I went back upstairs and started playing video games. But I want to say 10 minutes into my team deathmatch Call of Duty match, out of nowhere, my babysitter ends up coming upstairs and walking into my room saying, oh, Baba, can I play? You wanna play? Yeah, can I please play? I mean, this game's not really for kids. Excuse me, I'm your babysitter. Yeah, I guess you are. And then I ended up standing up, giving her the controller, and she sat on my gaming setup playing video games. But as she was playing in the middle of a match, she ended up handing me her water bottle, or I guess milk bottle, and telling me to refill it. At this point, I was super annoyed because I didn't know who was the babysitter in this situation, me or her. But anyways, just to make sure I didn't get into any trouble, I ended up going downstairs, giving her milk, and then afterwards, she ended up asking me, oh, Bubba, what do you have for dinner? I don't know. Didn't my parents like leave money for pizza? Oh, can you order pizza? I'm 12. I don't know how to order a pizza. Okay, well, here, just use my phone. She ended up giving me her phone, and her wallpaper was like some Hello Kitty childish stuff. And at that moment, I realized that this girl was like a 17-year-old in like a 5-year-old's body. Like, she was the most annoying thing ever, and she literally ended up being the baby of, well, the babysitting situation, I should say. Anyways, going on with the story, I was super annoyed that entire night because basically I ended up taking care of her, and that wasn't even the weirdest part, because as it became nighttime, I remember this babysitter ended up coming into my room in the middle of the night as I'm trying to sleep, and she ended up coming up beside me and laying down beside me in her onesie. I remember she laid down beside me and I freaked out and I woke up saying, wait, what are you doing? I don't like sleeping in the dark alone. Can you just sleep with me? Honestly, that was the only time I think ever in my life that a woman has asked to sleep with me and we didn't end up doing the devil's tango. Like, it was the most weirdest thing ever. Anyways, I remember the next day came and basically my parents ended up coming back home. They came back home and they walked into my room and they saw me and the babysitter sleeping beside each other, and they kind of freaked out. Obviously, my babysitter said nothing happened, and so did I, without, I guess, lying about it at this time, because usually it does happen, but this time it didn't. And one thing led to another. Well, that was a babysitter that was never gonna get hired again, especially at my house. Anyways, guys, that is basically it for today's really embarrassing story. Make sure you guys press that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, just follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.
My name is Baba. I'm still on top of the world. Never taken with your mother. Of course, let's go. Should I make it a story? Let's click record.